chat is already burping and I haven't even shown up yet. What is up with that? Anyway, hey everybody. Whoop, part 6. I missed that. Got rid of the chat. Where'd chat go? There's chat. Where's chat? Now I'm talking to chat as if it's a proper noun, just like a real streamer. Just like a real streamer. Anyway. Popping pizza out of the oven. It's always pizza day. Weekends are pizza days, man. Alright. You had all week to think about this, so are we gonna try to run and ditch town by trying to get people out, or try to fix things before the guys get into town? So, for people who were here last time, there seemed to be some wolves at the door, and I think they want to start nomming. So we gotta choose whether they can't lose everything or they could still fix it. To be honest, I'm not entirely 100% sure on the context either. We could fix it.
Oh, yes, of course. Run! You two are so fantastic at it, you may even last a day before you get eaten.
I'm sorry, I think I just heard something stupid!
Why would you run when we don't even know how many beasts are coming? We still have assets we can use in our favor. Our situation hangs on just a long string of misunderstandings. We could solve them and protect the city at the same time.
Wouldst thou have me go on another pointless quest to clear someone's name to save the kingdom? Unlike Dad, Adder has actually done something. They have reasons to want him dead. Or are you perhaps suggesting that he follow your life choices, We could change his name to High King and wait for everyone to forget there was ever an Adderson. Is that what you want, Sepp? Should I go fetch Rochelle and ask her to be his procurer too?
Why bother with a middleman when you know all about pandering?
Assface!
Nimrod!
Enough!
The silence summoned into the room was as tense as it was fragile. It only lasted until Adder breathed again.
This is all your fault, isn't it? You filled her mind with all those stupid made-up stories about honor becoming a knight. Like this pea-brain needed any more fuel for her delusions!
Adder looked away, futilely trying to hide a scowl from himself.
Let's just find a way to get you home safe, Sepp. Golf's ain't no place for a sane person.
Yes, go back to your gilded cage. Drink your fat ass to sleep and let the adults handle the rest.
I can't go anywhere. I've been kidnapped.
Sepp let her hand fall on Adder's lap. Adder's hands flew as far away from her as physically possible.
I've surely been tied up and locked, my fate resting completely in Captain Adder's wandering hands. Oh, how the tables turn. It was usually the other way around, wasn't it?
She was the one who... It's all lies!
Trying to embarrass me with such pitifully immature tales? That's hardly a story. If you heard the things he mumbles to himself at night when he thinks I'm sleeping, you wouldn't be able to look him in the eye again.
What are you talking about?
The literal eye.
They can hardly be worse than the things he said in my bed.
Go back to arguing, please!
Well, it sure looks like a hostage situation in here. There's nowhere to run when it comes to Thar's kids, Adder.
Everyone turned their heads up to stare at the tree man in complete disbelief.
Sorry for coming through the roof, Guff. There's some edible mold on the beams. I thought you may like to know.
Don't you dare act all friendly with me, you heartless stump! How did you find this place?
I have to admit that Talid was understandably uncooperative about this particular case, so I had to enlist the help of a few friends to find your little abode. I've known for a while now, really. I just figured you wouldn't be very happy if I dropped by without a reason, and I'm sure your little sister couldn't agree more with that sentiment. Odd place to hang out after a trial, but I'm not one to judge.
Illigrab laughed heartily at his own pun, but quickly quieted back down when he saw it didn't land so much as crash into the ground, burning.
You come to arrest us?
Arrest you, Ada? For what? Stealing a lady's heart and getting away with it? Please. Elbar's just abusing his power as usual. That's just your case, of course. Slapping a noble deer unconscious in the middle of the plaza is a little bit higher on the crime list. But I figure we both know by now that Miss Jasif never lived under the same metaphysical rules as the rest of us do. She can do as she pleases. I'd have to get a bit more serious about this whole ordeal if Elbar were to stop screaming he's been betrayed and start treating it as an abduction, of course. But I'm sure you'd be quite a few leagues away from Heirloom by then.
Are you encouraging us to escape?
Me? I would never, Pumpkin. That could get me in trouble, you know. I'm just saying that if I were anyone but me, I definitely wouldn't stick around to watch what happens when Sir Askadath gets his title upgraded to Lord.
Stop listening to him! Don't believe a single word this murderous creep says! He was spying on us!
And he agrees with your position to get the heck out of town. I don't know what you're complaining about, Goff.
Do you have to drag your grievances into everything, Goff? I was waiting for the right moment to say something. The conversation wasn't exactly letting up.
How much did you hear then?
More than I care to know. But, you know what they say, safe, sane, and something other.
No clue where you're going with that, but we ain't got time for a lesson. If you ain't here to take us prisoner, there's something you gotta hear before you get.
Askadath.
Hold your buckthorns, lad. I said I wouldn't show up without a reason, and I meant it. It's a mission of the utmost importance and urgency, in fact. Aina, I see you hiding there, you tiny troublemaker. Come on out. Did you think I wouldn't recognize you without the dye or what? Bring that cauliflower mullet over here this instant. Your father's worried sick.
With a somber nod, Aina made to walk out, only to get desperately tugged back by Adder's side by the wrist.
She can't leave yet. It ain't safe out there.
Whoa there, Adder. I'm sure you're all kinds of stressed out after what happened today. And trust me, I wouldn't dare move you an inch away from each other if I didn't have to. But we really don't have a choice here. As messed up as it is, she's still basically a child in the eyes of the law. And her father's, if he had any. How do you expect me to justify leaving a child with a ludopath, a Sephi, and a deserter when he asks? Speaking of which, it took me ages to get red off that darned pie without you, lad. Don't worry, I did manage to find a new helping hand just in time, but if I were you, I'd keep an eye out for any sudden bouts of hair loss. You may have a new curse or two on your shoulders.
Illigrab trembled slightly at the thought of more flames.
Oh, well then, I wish I could stay here chatting all evening, but I really should get going before someone in the neighborhood tries to chop down this noise disturbance.
But wait, Illigrab, you can't leave for...
I know, you want to clear your name. That is extremely brave of you, kiddo, but it is not a wise choice right now.
That ain't...
Fine. I'll tell you what, if you really feel like going through with this, I'll be waiting for you all day in the keep tomorrow. You can just drop by, explain your position, and I'll make sure to listen close.
The city's full of beasts!
Illigrab blinked. Then he started cackling.
Of course, the city is brimming with beasts. That's why you had to run away. Classic Adder. You can tell me all about these beasts if you decide to show up tomorrow. Come on, Ana. There's no place like home. Especially no place like this home.
Ana looked at her friends from the doorstep one last time, while Illigrab put the ceiling back in its place. She walked up to Adder. He could only look through at her teary-eyed. "It's okay," she signed with a thumbs up, and the most unconvincing smile she had ever shown him. She turned away. When only the faintest traces of fresh pine fragrance remained in the air, Yoff looked left and right, hoping to find some newly sprouted hesitation. The only thing that grew in Ina's absence was the determination in her apprentice's visage.
You're not actually considering his offer, are you?
You got wax in your ears or what? This could be our only chance to get a word in with him.
Get a hold of yourself, you melonhead! That was nothing but a poorly laid trap! Not to mention, not a problem to either of us once we're 300 leagues away from Erlem!
Adler's lip firmly shut.
Come on, we have to leave! We'll disguise ourselves as a traveling troupe! Adder, you can learn how to juggle rocks along the way! Me, I need to find a new hat and a northern accent! Sep, you just continue to be a hindrance, it'll be fine! We'll be...
I'm not going anywhere, Bard.
What?
I don't want to run anymore! I'm tired, alright? I don't want to have to run again. I don't want to leave my family behind every time. I've got nowhere to go but here.
Adder, come on. Lad, my lad. We are friends, you and I. I gave you a place to live, and I taught you how to survive. Don't throw everything away for a girl, a rock, a tree, and a senile old geezer. I know. We'll find you a nice doe in the steppes. I'll steal her boyfriend, and you get to console her, and then you'll settle down together in the farm of your dreams and have all the fawns you want.
Well, that's an interesting couple dynamic.
Don't bother, Yoth. It's like talking to a brick wall.
Darn right it is. I made up my mind that I ain't fixing to die any day soon. So don't you worry about a thing, Bard. All this thick skull needs is a little more time to come up with a master plan and a touch of magic to make his words as pretty as they can be.
Adder sent a wink in Sep's direction. He got an eye roll for his effort.
Fine. Do whatever you want. It's not me they're looking for.
Yoff slammed the door shut, taking all the air in the room with him. Sep and Adder shared a glance under the last few sun.
Never mind. I'm not leaving you two alone in my house.
Yoff kicked the door open. He seemingly produced out of the air 2 plates of bread, boiled beans, and sweet lichen that Adder had never even smelled before.
You get 1 night, and that's it. 1 night to let you clear your mind, get some rest, realize how stupid what you're saying is, let reality sink in, and then we leave. Understood?
He tossed the plate at Sep's face before curling down on his side of the room.
Good night, Sop. Make sure to smash any flea you see.
Sep gawked at the unsophisticated meal and then back at Adder.
Please tell me he's not serious.
Okay.
Sep just ugged herself to sleep. Time slogged by that night. Soft snores and crickets in the distance. Shrubs that had been bitten down to branches jittering around, trying to find a place to sleep. Adder searched the depths of his own mind for wisdom he lacked, trying to find the solution. To nothing in particular. To everything that was happening. To each and every last mistake in his life that brought him to this moment. But no answers ever came. All he could do was try and fall asleep. A rustle by his side told him he wasn't the only conscious person in the room at such a tempest.
Hey, Sep. You awake?
Gruel, yelp, slop.
No.
Yes, you are.
Sleeping is 90% pretending to be asleep, and my acting skills aren't quite good enough to pretend to sleep here. So, I suppose I am.
Sep rolled towards Adder's bed, doing her best not to wake Yoff up.
Were you thinking about her?
Yeah. I was really hoping she'd, I don't know, show up out of nowhere in the middle of the night or something. That's a very Aina thing to do.
What is? Coming to your shack unannounced?
I don't like where you're going with that question, ma'am.
Adder huffed. He put his hands on his torso and let his gaze wander up until it was lost in the darkness between the rafters.
Tell me if I'm being too nosy now, okay? I know you said getting closer to Aina was part of a plan and all, but I don't think you got the acting chops or the patience to spend all day making passes at someone you don't like either. You do got a thing for her, don't you?
If I said yes, would that make you jealous?
No. Not really, no. I'd think you'd have good taste.
Sep giggled, shuffling closer to Adder.
She looks really strong. I want her to carry me.
Right? She could actually lift me up with only one hand.
Wow. And she has 2 of those.
Yeah, what a concept, having a pair of anything.
Oh, come on. You want me to go for the easy joke.
Adderson, son of your father, the upper field making raunchy comments in front of his love? Never. Never in a million years.
Indeed. Adderson, son of Gerfather, the upper field, would never dare act so discourteously in front of his Jacif.
Good thing you're not a Jacif.
Aina would have gone for it, though.
Unspoken words welled up in Adder's chest until the pressure was such that he had to sigh. Sep put a hand on top of his.
For what it's worth, coming from someone like me, I'm positive that she'll be fine. No matter what the beasts have in store for the city, it's obvious that Aina is an important part of it, and that she doesn't want anything to do with them.
Yeah, you're right. I gotta believe in her. Thanks for that.
Adder and Sep shared a long hug.
Think y'all would wake up if...
Good night, Adder.
Yeah, he would. Adder's eyes flew open as his body catapulted itself forward. He couldn't help but pat his chest and his face, making sure everything was where it should be. He was in his house, in his bed.
Don't tell me I slept in. Oh, was I dreaming out loud again just now, Mr. Bard? Bard?
No reply. The sun was rising somewhere beyond the missing wall, like any other morning. Goff's bed, his slightly bigger hay-filled burlap sack, to be precise, lay discarded paces away as usual. But the bard himself was oddly absent from his favorite spot in this hours in the morning. Adder's pillowy chest.
I realize that you're trying to bribe me, and I'm fully okay with that.
No, I swear that's really what happened. His chest made such a nice hardest headrest that every single character in the story shoved their face against it, intentionally or not, at least once.
Uh-huh. Talking from experience, aren't we?
I thought that ought to balance the accusations of butt favoritism.
The booty stands proudly on its own, unmatched.
There was very little that could force Geoff out of bed so untimely. The break of dawn was Adder's time to rise, not his. Adder looked around, wondering what else was missing, trying to piece together the puzzle of his memories after the second most stressful day in his life.
This way, Adder.
Adder blinked at the voice. Before his eyes tried to open again, he was already on his feet.
Sip, you're here.
What? Did you think I'd change my mind and run away in your sleep?
No. It's been a while since I last woke up with you around. I missed that.
Now I feel bad for having considered it then. I never thought I'd hear anyone say they missed the sight of me in the morning. Here, you deserve a reward. Close your eyes.
Adder closed his eyes, pursed his lips, hoping to find Sep's face very close. Instead, he got a slice of something shoved into his mouth.
What's this? It's good.
I believe it's an orange of some kind. I was hungry, so I went to fetch us some breakfast.
You what? You brought fresh fruit into slander? That's like hollering from the rooftops that you're living the high life. But where did you even get this?
Do you want to know?
Adder hesitated, but Sep did not. With a mischievous grin, she placed one of his oranges in his hand.
The orange I gave you belongs to me. Return it.
Yes, ma'am.
Adder stretched the orange towards her. Sep grabbed it solemnly.
Do you want it back?
What back?
Your orange.
Oh, that's for me? I mean, if you don't want it, I'd sure be happy to get that off your hands. But I still want to hear where you got it.
Of course. I'll tell you later.
Oh man, she weird. Adder ate his orange happily, unaware of the edge behind Sep's smile.
I think I've fully come around on the matter of your escapade into my mind, Adder. You managed to dredge up some incredible memories.
Yeah? What crime?
All sorts. Mostly feelings, in fact. I was convinced that I was fully aware of all my thoughts and abilities. But I guess I wasn't even capable of controlling that much after all.
Speaking of knowing, you got any clue where Golf is?
That loser wandered off a while ago saying he'd make us leave whether we wanted to or not. So, I'm fully expecting another argument once he gets back.
There was a knock on the door.
Speak of the bard.
Sep reached out for the handle, but Adder yanked her hand back. Another knock. Adder still held her hand.
Adder, my beloved, are you in there? I seem to have misplaced my keys. Kindly open the door for me.
We ain't got no keys. That's the Tickman knock.
Sep and Adder waited with bated breath for the next knock.
Open up, scoundrel! I know you're in there, you treacherous thief! I have captured that undersized manservant of yours. If you don't want him to suffer the same fate as you, I suggest you give yourself up at once.
Oh, mine Adder! I'm so sorry. I had to tell him all about how you kidnapped Esteth and coerced Esteth, my poor childhood friend, the enormous Chasifo Maseptut, to retaliate against Sir Askadath.
I knew it! It was all a plot to ridicule me. But how dare you blackmail me through my bride-to-be? Release her, villain!
Adder looked to Sep, absolutely horrified. She grinned back with an innocent shrug.
I guess that's my cue to leave. Oh, Sir Askadath! My love! Please help! This handsome villain threatened to hurt my elderly maid if I didn't go along with his plan.
For some reason, Sep couldn't even start to guess. Instead of immediately darting away, Adder started roaming the room in panic, kicking open every sack and rummaging through every hay pile that had so faithfully served as a bed for his stay.
Don't come in yet, I beg you! He's put a dagger to my throat and will slice it open if you dare step in!
After much running in circles looking for alternatives, Adder settled for Gyalf's sleeping bag and tugged at his sides to make it wider and wider until it seems we're about to burst.
I'm buying you time, you moron! What are you doing?
The buck lifted the sackcloth over his head.
Adding realism to the scene!
He didn't so much shove Sep into the burlap sack as stuff her in it head first with a grunt. He heaved the newly kidnapped royalty into his shoulder and dashed off through the missing wall. There was no way around the house, and there was no way back. Elbar had brought the whole squadron of guards with him. Adder stopped dead short in front of the cliff below them. He hadn't thought quite this far ahead, and now he faltered to continue.
My love!
Elbar finally tackled the door open, finding absolutely no resistance to his attack and hurling himself and the 5 other guards into the ground instead. He looked up to see Adder climb atop a makeshift slide, a tipped-over outbox to be precise, and disappeared over the cliff.
What are you waiting for? Get them!
Everyone gulped, watching the results of such an action happen in real time. The friction made quick work of the outbox, tearing it down into brick shards far faster than this makeshift slide could hurt with a steep fall.
Crap, 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 crap!
Literally, crap. It was an outhouse. The only item that remained between Adder's butt and the rocks by the time he slid into a hole at the bottom of the slope was his underwear.
Those are my good pants.
How dare you mock me like this one-eyed scoundrel! I shall flay your buttocks myself for this!
Elbar leaped towards the cliff with Gyoff still in tow. Impressive as it has been, Adder had no intention whatsoever to remain and see the result of his heroics. Adder stopped running at last, finally collapsing to his knees in a shaded alley, hidden behind a grill. He set Sepp on the ground beside him. He reached for the sack, fully intent to help Sepp slip out of it, only to get headbutted in the nose. Sepp jerked from side to side until she managed to tear a hole for her head with the tip of her horns. The rest of her body remained very much stuffed inside the sack.
Anderson, what is wrong with you?
I don't know anymore. I thought you wanted me to steal you away.
And you just had to choose the one chance we had at fixing everything?
Don't you wee me after dropping me in it like that. I hate y'all. Y'all the worst friends I've ever had in my life.
Okay, just to be clear, I had nothing to do with this. Gyoff sold us both out. Pretty in line with all his life decisions, really. Abandoning people is basically his whole personality.
What's your excuse then?
I know when to fall by the wayside. Look around you, Adder. None of us actually give a damn about the city or the beasts. You just proved that prick right. We're all just serving our own purposes in the end.
Adder lifted his head from between his knees.
No, that ain't what happened just now, is it? He wasn't being a self-centered turd for once. He did it for you. He screwed me over because he wanted you safe.
What? Don't start trying to justify this now. Not everything has a reason, okay? He's just an asshole. Does it matter what he did it for? We're screwed either way.
It matters because it means he's good deep down and he wanted to help somehow. And he got you playing along too.
It was a good chance, so that doesn't mean I have to thank him for it. I didn't ask for his help or yours.
Of course you didn't. You would have just ordered us to do something if you'd thought of that first. How are you supposed to ask for help when you just think everyone's below you?
Adder wanted to stop talking, to stop damning himself after having made a fool of himself, but the words just kept on coming.
I got it now. I got it for real, I think. I know why it's always black or white with you.
You don't ever want to think of the reason behind things because you're so convinced that you got us figured out. It's Miss Mind Reader's world. And if you were wrong, you'd have to admit we're all free to make our own choices. Well, it's looking like the end of your world as we know it, Your Majesty. How long are you going to keep on dawdling through life, splitting everyone between folks who could do something for you and folks who are beyond redemption?
If you are done with the lecture, I have a life to get back to. Enjoy yours.
Sepp never walked with anything less than a dignified stride, not even to saunter away in a burlap sack. Adder found himself alone once more. It occurred to him that maybe he would have preferred to keep her thinking that, to be as far from right as possible. The closer he got to being honest with himself, the closer he got to driving everyone away from him. Nobody liked the person he was when he wasn't even bending over backwards to please him. He didn't sag for long. He was completely alone after all. Adder turned his face towards the slums, determined towards the one person that had stayed with him throughout everything, for better or worse, the man who had constantly been unreliable all along. He wouldn't give up on Gyoff.
Wait! What are you doing?
Huh? What are you doing? Weren't you?
Elbar will be coming that way, you cretin! Are you trying to get yourself killed?
Adder pondered the very same thing.
You know why I'm friends with Gyoff, Sepp? It's 'cause I get him. We got a lot in common, the two of us.
No, you don't! What are you even...
Adder brushed Sepp's cheek with a thumb. His smile carried a story.
Remember that one buck I knew? The one from down yonder the steps? Well, he didn't get along with his family either. Wasn't all they hoped he could be, see. They didn't like him very much by the end, so they sent him away hoping he'd come back someone better. But he never did get better, and he never did come back. He messed his whole life up. Forever. So we get. He ought to stayed and taken whatever they got in store for him. But he went and ran. The price was everything he'd ever known. I don't know if you've ever met the guy. But the thing is, he can't ever return home. And even if he could, he couldn't look him in the eye again.
Literally.
You don't know that.
Adder tried to keep a smile on his face.
To be fair, he was kind of an innocent guy. And he had huge dreams, so Goff scammed every last coin out of him the second he arrived. Don't tell him I told you this, but instead of getting mad at the bard, the guy couldn't help but think, whoa, I wish I was like that. He wanted to be cold, to be fine with the bad things he'd done, but no matter how much he tried, he could be Adder, but he couldn't be the rest of that. He was still me no matter what. And there ain't no way that me guy could survive leaving his family behind twice.
Of course he can. He's just been betrayed. Come on. They'll cut your head and mine if they find us talking like this.
I'm sorry, Sep. Love, I'm for real grateful for all the chances you've given me, but I meant what I said. I ain't choosing between the people I love no more.
Why are you being like this? Can't you listen to me just this once? You're only going to get hurt.
No, I get that. And I think you're way smarter than I am, because you can see this don't make a lick of sense. I'm sure it's one of those honor bugs rich folks get sometimes. Must have caught a bit of it somewhere. I'm sorry I dragged you here. You don't gotta come with, okay? Go find somewhere safe to hide and tell them you escaped when I wasn't looking. Be as selfish as you say you are this one time. I want to stop worrying you too.
This isn't like you, Adder.
I ain't... No, you're right. It ain't. But I sure wish it was. So I'm just gonna pretend a little longer.
Adder glanced away, knowing that he would rather do anything else in the world. He knew that if he looked at Sep one more time, he would remember all the times that she had asked him to run away with her, and he wouldn't dare say no ever again. Then he felt a tug on his little finger, and he knew that it was already too late to escape. He turned around to find Sep staring at him with glassy eyes and an undignified blush on her cheeks.
You're not going to leave without a proper goodbye, are you?
How proper are we talking?
You said it yourself. This could be the last time we see each other.
All right, look, I miss you too, and I'm very glad I'm alive, and we're alone, and the three know they know. I'd be right happy to do whatever you wanted, wherever you wanted. But the whole city plus size is coming for us right now, and I gotta go save Goff, and...
I will not settle for anything less than a kiss. Or are you afraid of getting a little warm now?
Afraid? Of a kiss? Adderson, son of Gerfod of the Upper Field, don't know no fear, Missy! Ha 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 ha!
Are you done?
Yes, ma'am.
Adder pulled Sepley with one of his shovel hands and leading a heart pounding faster in the second than the whole last moon. A kiss so heated that it warmed up his very soul. It made him feel as grand and as special as she made him feel time and again. He forgot for a brief moment that there was a world outside, and that both their necks were in grave danger, especially his because it's so freaking big. There was only the kiss as far as he was concerned. This moment too would come to pass, alas.
Good. Now play along.
Something struck Adder's face at full speed, leaving a bright red mark. He needed an instant to rest her for the fact that it was Sep's hand.
Unhand me, you brute! How dare you try to steal me away from my love! My lips belong to one man and no more! Oh, Sir Askadath! Sir Askadath, where are you?
Hark! I think I hear the melodiously grating voice of Deceive somewhere, slapping the man who made her slap your brother in the first place! Yeah!
Deceive! Oh, my love! How could I fail to understand such an obvious ploy?
But what?
Oh, no! I can't believe secret, planning to make me his queen. I said play along, you numbskull. Going to take me to the Sea of Fensnar to claim the throne of the Saxarat for himself.
Yeah, whatever she said. Gonna take her to my lair and get legally married to her. Ugh, gosh darn it, Sip. Would it kill you to give me a heads up from time to time?
Guards! Forget that beautiful bastard! We have to stop that fiend before he makes away with my princess!
The guards that were just catching up rushed to grab Gyoff. They looked at the stumpy bard, and their faces turned toward Elevar.
What are you standing there for, you layabouts? Never mind. I'll go get them myself!
There. Now I don't have to worry about you. You're welcome.
You really did turn me into Captain Horneater.
You can spend all the time you need crying about your infamy once we have decided our next move.
What? Oh no, ma'am. I've changed my mind. I want to drop you. I'm dropping you as soon as I can. We're getting too far away from Slender as it is, and there's no way I'm carrying you all the way to Illigram.
I'm the only woman standing between you and the tip of Elbar's sword.
And your sacrifice is much appreciated, but I can 100% guarantee he wouldn't be coming after me if I wasn't carrying your majesty. If you want to help, just go and magic the guards away or something.
Of course! Let me try and persuade the minds of 12 armed deer while I'm bouncing on your shoulder. Or maybe I could burn the sack and set the whole street on fire as we pass to give them actual reasons to call me a Sephi. Is that what you want me to do, Adder? Arson?
Ma'am, I'd never. I'm sure you've gone into plenty of arson on Lord Snotty Snout already. We don't need any more of that.
Aw, is that jealousy I see? Did you think he had a pretty mark like yours?
Nah, I don't think nothing. But hey, since you're bringing it up, I'm sure the jerk-ass could use a mark or two. You should leave a big red blotch on that butt hanging from his face. One to match his little bros. That'll teach him how to treat a lady.
Like you knew much better.
So what if I don't do things the knightly way? I'm still a farmer, ma'am. I may not wear the right clothing, but I definitely know a thing or two about No, you know what? I think you made your point. You're still making a mistake all the same.
I'm not the one reaping what he sowed. If you were half the farmer you claim to be, you'd know some harvests are too fast for one husband.
Ma'am, I'd call the whole darn town over if these two farmhands ever stopped being enough. But why'd you keep running back to that gosh darn friggin' silver spoon-fed musclehead of all the horn-eaters in Dakna when he don't even want you?
Oh, I didn't realize I needed your approval to choose my patrons.
You didn't even choose him.
Adder, please. You can't choose the love of your life. He for whomst my heart flutters. All I can ever dream of. Yada yada, what a heartthrob.
Yeah, right. You're lying to me and to yourself. It's his horns after all, ain't it? So big and shiny and...
Why, thank you. I polish them every day.
With a quick swoosh, Elevar sent his cape away. He smirked as he tipped his sword towards Adder, clearly set on not letting him walk another step.
I've hated you.
Your legs have been slowed down by the weight of your villainy, miscreant.
Yeah, that's gotta be it.
Adder got the low end of his back kicked.
I mean, hands off my booty, landlubber! Tell me what you've done with Gyoff or your precious wife is gonna, walk the plank? Am I supposed to say that there? Anyway, she's gonna kick the bucket if you don't tell me where my friend is.
Friend? Friend? Not only are you wicked, one-eyed scoundrel, you are stupid as well. You never even noticed that your herald betrayed you from the start.
No, I 100% knew that. Yar.
So you think, but we were one step ahead of your evil wits yet. He was the one who instructed me to wait for you right here.
Like, here? Here?
In this general area.
Isn't that where it hurts when you get kicked in the nuts?
Don't start interrupting me with your shameless mockery! I know your vocabulary is far vaster than that!
Yeah, Captain. Pay attention to his spiel, or he'll have to start reciting it all over from the beginning and he'll end up hurting his throat.
Thank you, babe. Screaming threateningly always takes a toll on me.
You ever try hollering from your belly? I heard it. Sorry.
Where was I? Oh, yes! Yoff knew that your wretched heart would be crushed by the immense guilt you'd feel over abandoning the only man who had been compassionate enough to offer you a single crumb of affection in your miserable existence.
He's gonna catch a crumb of affection from these hands when I find him.
And trust me, brigand, if there is one thing I hate more than peasantry, it's piracy! Pay for your things, goddammit! Artists need money to eat!
I paid for this fair and square. Thank you very much, Elvar.
And writers! And actors!
And every other freelancer in the world. Those idiots think that think passion is its own reward have the empathy and creativity spirit of a boot soul.
Stealing from small creators is not the same as stealing from soulless corporations that feed on the creative output of the workers they employ, okay?
Stealing from people like Elbar is always morally correct, though.
Oh, no, yeah, bleed him dry.
Return my treasure to me at once! Do you know how much her love has cost me?
Then pay up or she doesn't belong to you. Well... given that they just gave me the hint of the century saying you should steal from Elbar and not pay them. Pay up! Good ovo! You're gonna make me say pay up? Okay. Pay up in 3, pay up in 2, pay up in 1. Okay. Support your actors, folks.
I'll return her gladly, but only if you can match the price you paid for her. I'll be gone and y'all will be happy together at last.
No! Sir Askadath! Adder, what is wrong with you? Don't give in to his demands!
You miserable liar! If your love could be so easily broken by gold, you never even loved her to begin with!
Didn't you just say you bought her?
Don't you dare lump us together, you thief! I'm a self-made stag who built his wealth honorably through his inheritance!
That's funny. I built my wealth by inheriting it. By working hard. Yes. Self-made.
Just kill me now, please.
Yeah.
How dare you order me to murder you? I will murder you on my own terms!
Elbar pointed his sword towards Aber. There he remained, frozen, in the gesture for a full minute, just to prove his point.
Now would be a real good time to do something, Sip!
It really would, wouldn't it?
Sip!
Die!
Sir Askadath!
The point of Elbar's unnecessary long blade stopped just a hair width short of the tip of Adder's snout.
Behind you.
The knight stood stately still. A moment later, he came crashing down, chin first against the ground. Blank were his eyes and his expression as he lay on the paved stones. Red was the blood that trickled from his forehead. Extraordinarily red, not blue or purple or any other color Adder had so often heard describing nobles from people such as him. The pirate and the princess looked up, struggling to keep their jaws locked in place at the sight of what awaited them. Where Elbar lay now stood none other than Miss Rochelle, still heaving on a fireplace poker, now bent in a particularly incriminating way. Rochelle tossed the poker, indented with Elbar's head shape next to its rightful artist. Then she reached over to the body and started to get a purchase on Sep's arm. Her face presage of dread.
Come with me. That won't keep him down long.
Sepp hesitated at first, but a single grunt from the massive body below them was enough to get both of their hooves moving towards the Heartache Districts, with a brief en route stop on Elbar's head just in case. The two women sprinted away, leaving the two men behind them. Then again, Adder was much too preoccupied to think about chasing them. His eyes was transfixed on the brief insinuation of a glowy-eyed silhouette observing them from the other end of the alley. He felt a cold drop of cold sweat zigzagging down his back. His legs tensed up, but he still couldn't move. His whole body frozen in fear at the sight.
Did I stutter? Move!
By the time Adder blinked again, the shadow was gone. He shook his head and began running after Miss Rochelle, making sure to accidentally trip over Adler's head as well, of course. The older woman led them through the narrow alleys, skirting the walls of the Heartache District, home of aggregated houses of ill repute and slimy storefronts, where one could get most of anything except sunlight. In case you started in Chapter 4. Streets that the guards would oh so casually avoid in their patrols, lest they be recognized with their uniforms on. Adder kept turning his head back, nearly losing sight of their guide time and again. He wasn't familiar with the area and would have much preferred not to have to excuse his way through the streets. So he picked up the pace, making a great deal of effort to catch up to Sepp. Her stride, he noted, was surprisingly quick when lightened by the horror of having to be carried by Adder in front of everyone else.
Sepp, I think I saw.
Are you trying to take us on a leisure tour around Heartache or what, Raoul?
Raoul didn't bother replying to that. She merely tossed a crumpled piece of paper as she ran. A wanted poster, and Adder could count himself lucky that he couldn't read a single thing it said about him. It was clear that around the streets like these, discretion remained the lowest common denominator. Sepp was clearly winded, but she thankfully wouldn't have to keep appearances up much longer. Their stroll finally drew to a close as the alley opened up into a guarded street once more. The street that led to the Desert Rose, no less.
Why are we here?
What a deep question, dear. Why are any of us here, really?
You know what I mean.
Well, I'm here because you didn't manage to spoil the surprise for Sir Askedaf. Is that how you thank me for saving your boy knight's life?
And speaking of me, I'm pretty sure I just saw...
What were you expecting? A warm welcome and a toast in your name?
I'm sure there are a lot of ways to greet someone that don't involve trying to get them killed.
Not for you, there aren't.
Oh, honey, come on. Is that really the tone you want to start this conversation on after disappearing for 3 days?
I was just hoping you'd have forgotten by now. Anyway, stop stalling the conversation. How did you know where to find us?
Let's just leave it at Gyoff and I had an axe to grind, shall we?
So he was playing both ends?
She knows Gyoff too?
Sepp made a discreet choking motion towards Adder.
Know him? My, I would certainly hope so. He was the only horn eater my age around the Desert Rose. Oh, the evenings we spent roasting fools to death.
Hold up. You saying you two are the same age?
Are you ready to gamble your life on your next words, dear?
You look younger.
Flatterer.
If you two are done with this stupid farce, I'm still waiting for an answer. Why would you take me back? No, I know that much. Why bring Adder along? Is this really all Gyoff's doing?
Is that so surprising? Even a squandered waste of a man like him can't help wanting what's best for his little sister and her boyfriend.
Before Sepp had a chance to contest any of those statements, Miss Rochelle scurried off towards one of the guards.
Help, please! Sir Askedaf needs reinforcements. Some miserable ruffian has knocked him unconscious in the middle of Forlorn Avenue.
The squad standing in the way immediately marched away. Rochelle merely watched them leave. After this, she walked around the corner and headed for the servants' back door.
See you on the other side.
The door was left ajar, only adding to Sep's confusion.
We're not actually going in, are we? It's clearly a trap.
Sip, I've been trying to tell you. I think I saw a beast tailing us.
You think?
I mean, I know a whole darn lot of fluffy folk with glowing eyes and interesting body shapes. Could be a number of things.
That was a fair enough point, much to Shep's chagrin. She sighed into her hands, considering their options.
If I have to choose between beasts, I suppose I'd rather deal with the one I know best.
Don't worry, Sip. I'll be right there with you.
That's the part that worries me.
The back door into the desert road was closed loudly behind them. Though they truly feared the worst, Ral didn't suddenly leap towards them with an army of guards and ropes. She didn't seem to pay any heed to them at all, busy as she was washing her hands in the ceramic basin by the entrance. When she turned around, the apprehension that the lovers radiated made her grin.
I have to admit, I didn't think you had the mettle to come in.
We're in trouble, Ral. Far worse trouble than you or Elbar.
Oh, trust me, I know. It's written all over your face. I hadn't seen you this scared since that time you ran into the door and snapped your little horns in two. Oh, you cried like the world was crumbling around you. Nothing we can't fix this time either, I'm sure. Feel free to slip out of that fancy new dress of yours into something more comfortable. I'll ask the servants to bring some tea.
I'm not leaving Adder alone with you.
Then I guess you'll get to wear matching clothes for a little longer. How fun!
Miss Rochelle swaggered off to the kitchen to request a few things. After that, she ushered her guests away to the exquisitely decorated meeting room nearby, where anything from raises to the deepest secrets in the palace were always discussed. Ral reached out of the clipboard lying on the rock glass table and started taking notes. Honestly, she couldn't have looked any more unbothered by their presence as she went about scribbling down notes if she tried. It occurred to Adder, one of the rare strokes of genius he had every once in a while, that such stillness of a face and mind had to be the product of years of effort. All manners of defense built up in answer to the certainty that her secrets could be stolen at a glance. This observant thought vanished into another nether as one of the servants arrived with kettle, a small tower of pastries, and only 2 glasses. Adder had spent moons having fictitious dreams about this re-encounter with the love of his life. The almond pasty slathered in fig jam, honey, and topped with a date that he had so unwillingly abandoned. He was past the point of taking any hints.
What's the big idea, Ral?
Well, if you must know, I'm trying to figure out our Bleak Night schedule. I'm thinking about shifting some of the performances around on the 2nd, 4th next moon. See? I have a feeling one of the usuals is going to be grounded for a long, long time.
If I may.
You may not.
Sep and Rashiel locked eyes, surprisingly at their simultaneous intervention. Adder limited himself to shrinking back into his seat, certain that he didn't want to arouse the anger of either woman.
Ral, I need you to listen to me like you haven't ever listened. It's the only thing I'm going to ask you in my whole life.
Ooh, a favor and a lie right after getting saved from a romantic escapade. This should be good.
Rochelle put the kettle towards her and started pouring herself some tea. Spill the tea. Sep took this as her cue to start to spill
I
the
know
tea.
that what I'm about to say may seem impossible to believe, but Heirloom will be attacked soon. By beasts, no less. They're not just a fantasy, Ral. We've seen them ourselves. If what they said is true, they're planning to carry out some sort of moral population cull on the deer. I don't know how long we have or who's going to be affected by it, but they'll wreak havoc on the city if we don't do anything to stop them.
Miss Rochelle remained very still for a moment. The only sight of life in her was very subtle quiver of her hand holding the kettle, which had topped the ornate drinking glass quite a while ago.
Dang my melt, sugar. That's horrifying.
Do you believe me then?
Of course I do. I know you wouldn't lie about something this silly. If you say beasts are coming to eat us all, then they most definitely are.
Oh, bless the gods. You have to help us then. You're the only person left in the city with enough power to stop them.
I'm honored you think so highly of me, but I don't have the power to do anything about this. I couldn't even stop you from frolicking around with this mismatched fawn and ruining your future with Sir Askadath.
None of that matters now. Besides, I'm sure that Elbar is jumping in joy at the chance of rescuing a swooning princess from a pirate or whatever. We'll be fine.
Honey, please. You aren't so naive as to think that little stunt of yours will be enough to mend your relationship with a knight, are you? You're dead to him now. You made sure to thoroughly soil both of your reputations in front of the whole city yesterday.
That's not what happened at the trial.
So that's what it was. See, a doe like me tends to ponder why there's a whole puncheon of wine instead of a gazelle at her doorstep. One thing leads to another, and then, what do you know? I got to see my favorite girl slapping Lord Burbith of Askadath. It's funny how news flies when you're barely yards away from them.
Miss Rochelle took a long sip from her glass. Her eyes peered over the edge, gauging Sep's reaction. A wry smile accentuated her point as she continued.
We're so fortunate that our princess never needed to learn from her mistakes.
How odd. Adder couldn't help but feel like he had heard such an accusation before. Little did that matter now. Sep was staring intently at Rochelle's eyes wide open, glowing.
Who told you?
Just Sif! There you go, doing funny voices again. Don't waste your tricks on me, dear. I was going to tell you anyway.
The flame behind Sep's eyes disappeared, but she didn't relax her stance one bit.
I knew we'd have to have this talk sooner or later. Kids grow up so fast. I guess... No. Yes? Perhaps you are finally old enough to hear the truth about your mother.
Say what? You really think someone as smart as Sep's gonna fall for such an obvious...
Sep snapped Adder's snout shut.
Oh, my poor Thar. With the guy always spending his nights down the street and 3 children to mind, your mother needed a confidant. Someone who could fill her loneliness when that dead weight wasn't around reminding her of the vows they'd made.
What are you getting at, Rel?
Come on, dear. You know what I'm saying. Won't you read my mind? Would you rather I spell it out for you?
Rochelle placed the empty tea glass back on the table.
Thar was my wife, as far as either of us was concerned. Not his.
You and Mom? When? Why? What?
Adder needn't have been a gaze reader to guess that Sep was mentally going over every time she seen her mother and Rochelle slipping away together in the past.
Are you sure that you want me to fill you in on all the details?
Sep gripped the edges of her skirt, and her face burning with more emotions than she had words for.
Didn't you used to say you were Gigolf's age?
Don't you ever dare ask me that again, dear.
Dear, haha.
All that matters in the end is that her 2 sons looked and sounded too much like him. It was hard for her to even talk to them, to make excuses for a guy day after day, to have a constant reminder of all the poor decisions locking her in the pillory of his life. But it was different with you. You were her own reckless choice. Her daughter to the very end. Her precious little curse.
Rochelle leaned back into her seat, drinking in Sep's stupefied reaction.
Yes, she told me everything about your circumstances from the beginning, darling. That's how I know those half-made tattoos on your boy knight aren't precisely a fashion statement.
So that means.
It means that come next week, Elbar will have forgotten all about you and you can simply start your tale anew as many times as you need. How exciting!
Hold on 1 second. Hold on, because I can't believe what I'm hearing. You knew about the curse, and yet you kept her locked away from me and everyone else in the world all this time?
Of course not. She chose to shut herself in, just like she chose to let herself out. And I'd say she's learned to open up quite a lot since then.
And you just casually let her do anything she wanted as long as it lined up with what you wanted her to do. You think you're fooling anyone here? You heartless tunk!
Well, that's uncalled for. I let Yasif leave and she came back of her own accord. After you broke her heart, may I add. You do remember that, correct? I only had to welcome her back and watch her cry over some worthless, misshapen fawn, like I knew she would. I didn't even have to ask. It was obvious like that.
Adder opened his mouth to retort, but the right excuses failed to take shape.
Don't think I don't sympathize, dear. Offering your unconditional love to someone like her takes a thick hide. Much thicker than someone like you could ever have. I will give credit where credit is due, however. You've really gone above and beyond to come back and break her heart one last time.
I'm never gonna hurt her again.
No, you're not.
These words were sinister enough to throw Adder back out of his rage. They were emphasized by a familiar sound of a mechanical whirl approaching somewhere behind the wall.
You really should have run away when you had the chance.
Sep only snapped out of her shock when the doors swung open, revealing a finely dressed merchant followed by a ratoon of marble deer. 4 of them, to be precise.
Tasakirmat Septut. I apologize for failing to visit sooner.
Man, this guy was all the way back from chapter 1.
Taylor! Y'all told me how to...
No, honey. Gilf isn't that heartless. For what it's worth, he had no clue that we had a guest.
Indeed. I'm afraid I had to keep my presence unannounced. This may very well be the first time I've fallen ill in 10 years, as far as anyone in the guild is concerned. I've been anxiously anticipating my sister's return since the news of the trial reached my ears yesterday. I see I wasn't wrong to worry.
Taylor, whatever it is you've heard, I can assure you that there are more urgent issues to take care of right now.
I'm afraid I have postponed this matter long enough. Rest assured that everything I do for your own safety.
With a snap of his fingers, a golem crept from behind Sep and apprehended her, gripping her arms back and away from each other.
Golem, hold her gently but firmly. She's branded a second deer. We don't know what else she may be capable of.
You don't have to do this, Taylor. Ral, please. I'm serious about the beasts. There's no time for this now. We can't possibly fight them. We should evacuate the palace and run as far as we can.
Run, she says. Dear. This is why you'll never be a businesswoman. You let your feelings get the best of you every time.
You aren't thinking about this rationally.
On the contrary, I'd like to think that I'm being quite pragmatic. Anyone with a purse is more than welcome in the city. And seeing how convinced you are of this, Taylor and I are going to find out how much coin the beasts carry very, very soon.
We're all going to...
With a single nod of Taid's head, the golem shoved a sleeve against her mouth.
Come on, honey. Don't look at me like that. I'm sure you knew this was a trap. Whatever you were hoping to achieve, you miscalculated the risk.
Ralph smiled almost proudly.
Ah, the flame of youth. Who knows? Maybe the beast will eat us both and you'll get another chance to pry this place off my dead cold hands. For now, however, I think you need to spend a good long while in your room thinking about what you've done.
Adder! Adder, run! Don't even try to...
Seb's muffled scream vanished in the distance as the golem carried her upstairs. Talid didn't even bother turning his face towards her shield before speaking.
Keep Septut safe and out of the way. Make sure she doesn't hurt herself trying to escape. And for the love of everything, Rahl, get her some decent clothes.
Rochelle pressed her lips into something that could only barely pass as a smile as she closed the door. And yet, right before it fully shut, she peeked in one last time.
Do me a favor, dear. I know it doesn't make much of a difference at this point, but that twerp truly made sure to treasure Yassif as much as he could. Don't drag this out too much.
Talid nodded curtly as the door locked behind him. The moneylender finally had the decency to look someone in the face, just in time to observe Adder's circling a table defensively.
Before I remove the last hint of asymmetry from that crooked face of yours, there is something I would truly like to know. What name shall I write on your epitaph?
Adderson, son of Gerfod of the Upper Field. If you gotta write something pretty.
How unsuitable. I would have much preferred a real name. Be it as it may, I must extend my gratitude to you nonetheless, Adder. You have far exceeded my expectations.
Oh, yeah? You don't say.
I had long wanted to emasculate that miserable excuse for a captain of the guard in public. Alas, no matter how long my reach is, noble blood always remains one step beyond. Untouchable for those of us who have everything in common except their veins. I am thankful to you for stealing my sister away from that useless waste of nepotic breath. I truly am.
But not thankful enough to forgive my life, are you?
No. I will simply finish what that oaf started.
Just a half nod. Two of the golems switched into an alert stance. The third got closer to Talid. They lowered their bodies painfully slowly, causing their knee joints to emit a high-pitched hiss that made Adder flinch. Next he knew, they were dashing at an impossible speed towards him. Thinking fast but not straight, Adder grabbed the kettle and hurtled it towards the closest golem. The brass projectile bounced away miserably, and the scalding liquid did nothing to deter the machine. Adder kicked the table up, just in time to watch a fist go clean through the glass. Undeterred, he gripped the metal frame harder and swung it towards the second golem, hoping to catch both their hands in one swoop. He found himself lifted off the ground instead, paddling in the air for his life. With an unnatural coordination, the golems spun their whole arms in a wide arc that sent Adder flying and the table flying against the wall. He heaved as the metal frame and thick rock crystal tabletop slammed against his body, though thankfully it didn't shatter. In a battle of strength, he clearly was heavily outmatched. The golems hurtled towards him once more, but Adder had something they didn't have, a ridiculously nimble body. Adder flicked the frame as one golem lifted the table, distracting them with the tinkling sounds just long enough to roll over their legs and leap towards the door. He tugged on the handle with all of his strength, only to remember it was locked.
Are you looking for the key?
Adder turned his face towards Talid. A white blur struck right where his snout had been, just a moment earlier. He saw the arm pass by his face in slow motion, dodged by fractions of an inch, only to land instead on the mahogany door. The golem rattled its arm, trying to dislodge it from the wood. It finally resolved to swivel its own torso like a spinning top, ripping out a sizable chunk of wood that struck him like a shield. It stuck to him like a shield.
Careful, Adder. That could have been your skull just now.
The hole it left behind was bedecked with splinters, a few bristles of yellow fur, and half of a bolted lock. A wild idea started to form in Adder's mind.
No way! My skull's way thicker than anything these guys could ever break.
We'll have to see about that.
Adder ducked a surprise right hook from the second golem, only to find himself suddenly splayed against the wall by a shield charge from the first one. His face was left completely exposed to a potentially lethal jab, leaving him with less than a precious second to tilt his neck 60 impressive degrees to the right, leaving the golem trapped against the wall. Down onto the ground, emboldened by his successful strategy, Adder spun jump to send a powerful left upper hook against the golem's mask. His fist stopped flat against the marble. A narrow crack sprouted up across the artificial face. Adder was rewarded with a broken knuckle for his efforts.
Ah!
The poor boy screamed as he gripped his left hands, cursing and stamping his foot, while the golem futilely tried to remove its hand from the hole it punched in the brick and concrete wall. The shielded golem crept up from his blind side, punching him right in the pit of the stomach. Adder's body sank down against the wall. 2 more terrifying blows succeeded this first one. And just like that, they stopped, giving him enough space to fruitlessly attempt to limp away. This ain't nothing, Adder lied to himself as he spat some blood over the carpet. The golem that just landed a hit was approaching him. Another remained next to Talid. The last one continued to struggle to release its arm from the wall. Adder hadn't taken 10 steps when one of the golems grabbed him by the back of his neck, showcasing its quarry to Talid to admire.
Sate my curiosity, Adder. How did you plan for this to end?
Though the boy wasn't particularly predisposed to reply, focused as he was on trying to keep down the pastries he had just eaten, the answer was most definitely didn't include a fractured rib or two. He tried to throw a rather miserable punch in the moneylender's direction, only to get dodged with supreme ease.
You surely didn't think someone like you could emerge victorious. You didn't presume you could merely elope with my sister and get yourself named a knight for your efforts?
Something tinkled inside Ashnerler's sash as he swayed at the golem's mercy.
You are a shrub, a mere beggar. You will never be good enough for Sep, or Aina, or that pathetic leech Geoff!
Adder reached for his purse.
So how dare you fancy yourself too good for me?
What? Adder extended a weary open fist full of tinkling metal towards Taid.
I'm so sorry, Mr. Taylor. Would you accept this as payment for all the trouble I caused?
Taid crossed his eyes down just in time to have 2 metal rivets sticking out of Adler's fist get shoved right into his nostrils. Ooh. Oh. I was not expecting it to go like that. Riveting. Oh, no, the pun. The pun punch. No. The golems jittered as Taid screamed and cursed, clenching his snout. With a well-placed kick to the golem's torso, Adder propelled himself out and away from the automaton's grasp. Still wielding a rivet in each hand, Adder ran back towards the wrecked door and started punching away at the wood, trying to carve a hole that would let him reach the latch.
Adder sinned!
The golem started stirring behind him. With the force pulled right out of the memories of the muscles he no longer had, Adder threw his good arm back and tore the door from its hinges. He spun in place and bashed it again against the first of the pursuing golems, splintering all over its head and slammed it to the ground. Adder lurched out of the room, holding his side in place as best as he could, while the second golem futilely tried to leave the room with the chunk of wood still stuck to his hand.
I really don't know why you insist on having him send all that wine. It's not even good. There are much better drinks out there if you just want to batter your liver.
Far removed from all the commotion, Miss Rochelle ambled through the corridors of the first floor, a few steps ahead of the golem that held Sip prisoner.
You don't even care, do you? You just want it because you can get your hands on it. Whether you like it or not is besides the point.
Sep had stopped struggling a while ago. She merely sagged in the golem's arms, her sight firmly set away from Rochelle. This was somehow a greater offense to the older woman.
What is it? What are you thinking in that magic brain box of yours? You think that I'm part of this? You think that I wanted any of this to happen? That I somehow plotted the death of that poor hick?
How's it going, Summer?
I gave you the choice to go through with your stupid elopement and let me forget all about you. But no, you came back with your tail between your legs to drag us all down with you, as you always do. And of course, it's now up to me to fix everything as usual. To say, yes, Mr. Taylor, no, Mr. Taylor, so he won't lift a finger against us for letting things get this far. Like we had a say in all your whims. I used to think you'd thank me when you were older, but the years keep coming and you never seem old enough. I really thought I raised you smarter than this, Sep.
Their stroll finally came to an end once they reached Sep's door. Slowly, methodically even, Rochelle counted each and every key in her key ring, pretending she didn't know the shape of this lock by heart.
It's not fair if you can't even defend yourself, is it?
The golem bore its empty gaze into Rochelle as she tugged its sleeve away from Sep's mouth.
Raise me? Raise me! How warped can you get inside your own lies? You want a medal for doing the bare minimum to drag my weight through the mud just because you loved my mother? This is all your fault. Can't you see?
Ah, so it's my fault for trying to keep you alive. That's nice.
With a light pat on its back, the golem started marching again into Sep's room. Rochelle pulled her key up again.
All you've ever wanted was to bleed me dry. You never trusted me with my own decisions. You never even cared once about what I needed.
I want to see you well, and I want to see you flourish, and I want to keep you from throwing your life away at every turn. You're the one who keeps forcing me to be the villain in your story. What part of that is so hard to understand?
How do you manage to make everything about you? If you really care, stop playing the victim for 1 minute and just listen to me, okay? You never had to do any of it. I didn't ask you to. So you've tried to keep me well? Well, you failed. I'm a mess. You're the whole reason I keep trying to throw my life away. Because guess what? I never wanted any of this.
Neither did I!
Not very far away from the argument now, Adder leaped steps in two, running upstairs using rivets and as climbing aids in a desperate bid for his life. Just a hair's width behind him, more than well acquainted with the tip of his tail already, 2 golems chased him relentlessly.
Why are you doing this? You don't gotta listen to him! We're all in danger!
Negotiating with machines, are we? Save your breath. They cannot hear you, and they do not need a why either. They will kill you because I ordered them to. No mercy, no emotions.
Still halfway along the stairs, seemingly recomposed, despite the nosebleed on full display, Talid casually strolled up. Adder flung a rose vase downstairs, trying to buy some time as he scanned the 3rd floor in search of a strategy.
And they'll only come for me?
That is correct. A golem is so advanced that they will not harm any other living.
Not 1 second after Taled was finishing saying other, Adder started knocking at the first door he saw. He kept on banging on every door he staggered past, on the walls yelling, and the woodwork over the walls yelling all the while.
There's monsters in the desert rose! Run!
A group of very confused performers and servers started trickling into the corridors. At the very start of the rampaging golems and the blood on Tide's face, the tide grew in roar into terrifying screams, surging towards the nearest exits. The automatons swiveled their torsos in short, brisk bursts, trying to find their target amongst the skittering denizens of the palace, to no avail. Adder, in spite of his worrying state, had somehow managed to seemingly vanish.
Is this your master plan, Adderson? Playing hide and seek until the beasts arrive?
Never one to fear getting his hands dirty, Taled sidled calmly past the throng, glancing at each door that lay ajar in its wake. Nothing, no trace of Adderson.
Are you truly going to waste my time so brazenly?
Increasingly desperate, Taled started to looking over the rafters. Inside the bases, any shape of a lanky yellow stag could somehow be contorted into slipping past him. He leaned over the railing and over the patio, hoping to find Adder hiding behind the colonnade, over the roof, anywhere.
Come out and face me, you cowardly horn-eater!
Who you calling a coward?
Oh, you missed one there, Adder. It was during one of these brief instances that where Taled's attention lay so easily misplaced that Adder suddenly cast himself on the ledge beneath the moneylender.
You're the one who's hiding behind 2 golems, you hypochondriac!
Hypocrite, you mean? The hypochondriac is kind of funny because his nose is bleeding. Anyway, the weak stag used what little strength reminded him. The weak stag used what little strength remained in him to hurl his whole body upwards as he swung his head forward, managing to bash the pitiful stumps against his head against Taled's bare forehead. The moneylender stumbled back, gazed at his second blow, but Adder wasn't nearly done yet. Taled didn't even get a second to scream in pain this time. With a giant hand firmly around his neck, Taled suddenly found himself weightless, floating in the air, right over the thin rail, stopping the escaping crowds from falling onto the patio. Feeling the call of their master, the golems rushed towards them, but there was very little they can do in such a difficult situation. Very little that wouldn't end with Adder dropping their master 3 stories down and therefore breaking their orders, that is.
Call him off, Mr. Taled. We ain't got time for this.
You're a lout, Adderson. You may think yourself bold after fooling my sister into thinking your life has any worth, but let me assure you once more, there is no outcome where you win. Even if you were to kill me, my golems would still carry out my last command. You'd be dead before I reached the ground. Assuming you could ever have it in you to see through this pitiful intimidation attempt.
Keep assuming, Ed. I've seen more people die than you could have ever killed.
What an odd choice of phrasing for a threat. Do you know what those words tell me? They tell me you have never killed. You may have caused deaths, perhaps, but you're still so afraid of combination that you think they make us the same. There's a world of difference between killing and letting people die.
Tell that to Lord Thumar when you see him!
Adder needn't do more than swing his arm, and suddenly Taled's body was launched up beyond the railing, away from any salvation. There was no reaction on the golem's part, no time to think. The moneylender's mouth hung over in disbelief as he felt his weight fly up towards the clouds for a brief instant, before suddenly precipitating down, reclaimed by Dakna. Frickin' gravity, man. The life lived in fractions of a second, Memories of so many decisions. Not even Taled could remain so cold as to make a space for revenge inside his mind as he fell. His descent came to an abrupt end, but not his life. Grabbed him in midair. Taled's neck whipped down forward violently as he was suddenly jerked back up by the collar of his tunic. A single piece of fabric stood between the red deer and certain death. A stag leaned over the railing to stop his fate. Without another word, Adder hauled Taled back over the railings and tossed him to the ground. Taled could only stare at him, awestruck and confused. It soon morphed into something more familiar. Superiority.
You didn't have it in you.
No, I 1000% do. I got it in me, all right. I know I do. One look at you and I just know I do. The world would be so much better without a weak, hoarding scum like you taking advantage of everyone else. When I think of that, I could drop you 1,000 times over. I could choke the life out of you right now. But you're Sep's brother, and she loves you. And I know she's for real convinced she's got to be like you too if she's going to get anywhere in this life. Y'all could be right. Oh, you've definitely been way better at me at this whole surviving thing. But I still think it's wrong. I know it's selfish, but I don't know how I'd look her in the face ever again if I gave you a taste of your own medicine. I don't want it to hurt more than I already done. So maybe you're right. Maybe I don't got it in me to be like you. Not yet, I don't.
Is that so? That's very stupid of you. Kill him.
Jesus. There were no magnificent movements, no great strategy, no tricks. One of the golems simply tackled Adder, splintering the railing like a mere toothpicks. Adder and the machine plummeted down into the patio several stories below. Sep ran out of breath for a moment, an unnatural chill crawling up her spine. Her ear shot up. Something was wrong. But this ominous premonition had nothing on the sight of Rochelle's furiously slamming the door to Sep's room open and shoving the golem out.
You want me to treat you like an adult? Fine. Let's all quit pretending then. I may not know what strange magic you cast upon my wife, but I know sure as I'm standing right in front of you that you ain't no Yusif, no queen, no princess, no nothing, honey buns. You're just some ungrateful cursed brat that I can't seem to get rid of. Still, you want to be called a different title every single day? Just say the word, sugar. I'll call you any and everything you want. 'Cause know what, your grace? You ain't never even had a name to begin with.
So what? Mom found me in a palace in Basaksarat. She said it didn't matter who I was. I would become Jasif.
Oh, yes. She found you in a fortress, I bet. But it was in the kitchen of some third-class castle, wherever in the northeast if memory still serves. That makes you what? The Mary Queen of an inn in Tosal, maybe? Calcant, if you're so desperate to get some sun?
Her tone kind of changed a little bit. Like, there's a weird, like a different inflection in her voice than used to be. I don't know. It's kind of weird.
What are you talking about?
Honey, your mother told me all about the day she rescued you from some poor maid who was just overwhelmed minding her other children. Yup. She just had to become obsessed with this one runt. The most special indeed.
That's a lie. You're lying.
Yeah, her voice seems like it seems like a different voice actress. Honestly, it's so different. Like it's like her before her voice, Rochelle's voice was like cold and calculating and like light-ish. Yeah, accent slipping. That could be it.
You want to blame someone for all this? Blame Thaw for losing her mind. Blame me for caring at all. But it's about time you got this into your head, you home-wrecking perisher. If it wasn't for you, she'd still be alive.
No.
You know all the well I do that a guy wasn't here the night she died.
No. No, that's not...
What did you do?
I didn't... It wasn't...
What did you do?
Adder was certainly a resistant boy. His skull seemed made of the strongest cement. His bones were steel beams. But even the sturdiest house crumbles to pieces when slammed against the ground with the force of a stampede. Adder blinked once again, seeing past the dark haze in his vision and the weight in his chest. He could see a caricature, a face of sorts. The boy had never dared look at a golem up close, other than Ina, of course. Much less so in the light of day. He was afraid of what he might find on testing his convictions. But now there it was, right in front of him, about to kill him. He was all out of excuses, and he could see it crystal clear. The golem's eyes were all wrong. There was nothing inside of it. In the same way, you can tell apart the warmth of heated metal and the warmth of body. Adder could see these creatures that looked and felt so much like Ina had nothing to do with her. He reached out and wrapped his less broken hand around the golem's mask, still cracked from the patch that had wrecked his other hand. Adder didn't hesitate this time. The mask crumbled into pieces inside of his fist. Only metal and clothes remained.
I knew she wasn't. No.
Dark again. He heard some metallic falling nearby. 2 sets of steps, then silence. Adder gasped in pain as Teddy's dagger drew a thin trail of blood where it rested on his neck.
You put up quite a fight. But it's over, Adder.
Taled lifted the dagger in the air, ready to bear it down in full force on Adder's chest. Adder followed the movement of the dagger as it rose through a half-shunted eye, until a little flame sprouted in the corner of his sight instead. Tade's dagger pierced skin and bone, and it would have punctured Adder's very heart if a sudden blast of scalding air hadn't pushed Taled off of him.
What?
Oh, he's exploding now. Fire coming out of the other side of the palace, toward the sky, all over the roof. Fire coming from one room.
Sep! No!
Yep, Sep just killed her stepmom. Taled ran in the direction of the fire, muttering desperate things under his breath. Adder just lay on the ground, bleeding with his eyes closed. He heard one set of steps move toward him, then another, and one last. As he felt the golem's weight climbing on top of him once more, he couldn't help but think it was almost funny, really. His second time getting stabbed wasn't quite as bad as the first, but he couldn't seem to find the strength to get up and run around this whole time.
Is this how you die after all, Bones?
Struggling to keep his eyes open, or his eye open, I should say, Adder looked up. He saw the point of the knife, the golem's arm, and the silhouette of another hand stretched over him.
That's so sad. I thought I'd get to kill you myself.
His eye rolled back toward the patio, finding instead the royal pathway hovering over him. He heard a young guard screaming and the Jasif losing her will to escape.
It sucks, doesn't it? And it's only going to get worse from here.
He felt the ground falling under him, bereft of the power he had when he jumped down with Sep in his arms. He ran through a wall, and he climbed up a window, and he made his way into someone else's mind. He did so many things he could have never done on his own because someone else was there watching him.
If you're not going to fight, I'll order Aina to let that thing put you out of your misery now.
And he wondered if that was magic too. If she had been looking after him before he even knew. If she had just wished him well, while he couldn't do anything for her. If he was just glad to feel useful again.
Get up.
He tried to breathe, tried to follow the lessons she so incessantly taught him, though he knew why they never worked, why he could never look inward.
No, not like this. Get up.
Get up, Bambi! Memory after memory started filling his mind. Memories he had so gladly given away.
That's it. Fight.
He saw his home and the cart taking him so far away, the last time he would ever see his mother and his father and his siblings.
We need you here a little longer.
He saw his boss and the fort and the captains new and old. He remembered the last time he slept with two eyes, the last time he let himself rest and give up,
Get
the last time he failed everyone.
up.
He wouldn't fail them again.
Good talk. I'll catch you later, pup.
Why did you stop there?
Sorry? I just wanted to check if you were still paying attention.
I so am! How could I not be? I finally know where this is going! It's the day without sun! I learned about this back when I went to school!
You aren't going anymore?
No. I have special permission to miss out on it! Oh, the curse of my precocious intellect! I was too smart for my teachers. They couldn't handle my genius.
I feel like I may have perhaps started to develop an ear for Lynn's lies. But not yet the heart to call her out on them. Lynn, are you sure you want to continue with this now? It's really late and I'm rather concerned or nervous about your health.
Well, aren't you a fretter?
I'm not fretting. I'm just letting you know that you could die at any moment. Lynn blinks in such a way I can almost hear her. She squints her eyes at me just to double check.
That's one hay of a fortune.
It's not a prediction. It's a fact. You will die.
Yeah? Won't we all?
No. Lynn finally seems to understand. Whatever it is, I needed her to understand, I suppose. There are still a few hours left before sunrise, and you're not in a rush to go back, right? Would you care for a nap?
Would that put you at ease?
I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm so at ease right now. Never been more unbothered. Lynn makes no effort to hide the fact that she's looking down on me.
Fine, I'll take that nap. But let it be clear that it's for your sake, not mine. And not because I'm a kid.
Of course. Lynn continued to grumble as she folded her arms into a headrest. Rest well, little one. Moments pass in silence. I would not be able to guess how long. My mind keeps screaming at me to run. Nothing ever good comes from involving myself with mortals. But she's just a child, and it is a fact that kids are phenomenal. The greatest bloodline, the greatest blooding invention. Their minds are quick and sharp and so full of hope. No, they barely ever need hope. More like they just see things as they are. The world is kind in their minds. Yeah, narrators live forever. I never got to be a child, and I'm not a gaze reader, so that's just my impression of them, I suppose. Can't help but admire their commitment to positivity. She'll be fine. She has a whole life ahead of her. But I may as well get some work done while I can. Let's see if I remember how to do this. To the worship, Constable Bogus, greetings. I seek thy mercy in this hour of... No. Dearest Adira, it is my great hope that you are still exuberant and thriving. I have need of your... Listen here, you vapid offshoot of decomposing turnip. I need a favor. I nod to myself, content with the great progress in the field of writing an introductory letter and processing to reach out for another sheet. This one already mysteriously smeared full of ink. As I draw the new sheet back, I realize I've gotten a hold of the sketches Lynn was doodling. Her smug kid face sits near, turned on her cheek at the other end of the table, pushing the page towards me.
Did I do Sep's butt justice?
I remember it being a bit bigger.
I'm starting to think you like to exaggerate her assets.
You just weren't there to see it.
I'm sure you can tell me all about the greatness of my ancestors.
Weren't you gonna take a nap or something?
Yeah, I was.
Lynn's half-closed eyes glide back to the drawing. Her insolence remains unreadable.
You know, one of the first lessons you learn as a gaze reader is that nobody is really coherent. People can believe two opposite things at the same time. Our thoughts don't need to make sense. Most people can't really tell why they do the things they do until somebody else tells them. And that other person is just guessing.
Why are you telling me this?
Because I know that you want to leave. And I know that when you leave, you'll be gone. I've seen that from the start. And I won't ever find out the actual why, because not even you know why you'll do it.
Lynn.
I don't want you to go digging for excuses now. I just wish you wouldn't try to convince me that you're doing it for my sake.
I do worry about... It occurs to me that perhaps that is the problem. That I still cannot say these things I need to say. Or that after so long I'm no longer required to. And that my thoughts are hardly my own for the moment I met her. So the question remains a direct one.
Maybe, or maybe not. We could spend all day coming up with theories, really. I understand that people don't always have a reason to want to leave everything behind and start anew.
Did you have one? A brief twitch breaks Lynn's current stroke, leaving an ugly blotch of ink on an otherwise pristine page. There's a dramatic lack of sound around her as she stares at it.
I can't believe this! You truly are a dismal narrator! Stories are meant to be told one at a time!
That's right, I'm sorry. Good thing I'm such an eager writer here to fix all my shortcomings.
Indeed! How fortunate you are that I am here, and that I am rested and ready to finish this story.
That makes two of us. The end, yes. We shall reach an end tonight if we hurry.
No time to lose, then!
Chapter 5. The City Without Us, or what better way to end a story than things when things have already gone south? What is it with the frickin' theme of eclipses this year? I just gotta start off by saying that. Like, we had an eclipse here in Buffalo in April. Frickin', what was it called? The VR chat frickin' convention. Just eclipses all over the place. Anyway, darkness. A net cast over the star, pricked by the stars who refuse to be hidden. What a curious phenomenon. Darkness where the midday sun had sat in its throne above the city of Illyrium, just moments earlier. For the first time in decades, the curtains were drawn over the celestial stage of Dakna in its totality, so that its overawed inhabitants may gaze upon the stars in the middle of the day. A day without the sun. But history demands that we lead our eyes away from the wonders of the sky so that we may witness the horrors on the ground instead. The story of our protagonist starts and ends with a corpse, and I am almost certain that it was a corpse. Not a breath lifted in his lungs, not a beat left in his heart. Still it moved. Magic or pure instinct, to this day I still do not know, but after a scream the likes of which the world had never heard, the streams of blood running from his open chest trickled down into a drip. With a surge of strength, the dead man ran. Past the deactivated golems, past the fleeing denizens of the Desert Rose. Into the fire that had spread all over the first floor already.
Septos! Open up! Sep!
Talid banged helplessly on the door, rushing against the flames, trying to make their way out of the room. His last two mechanical companions lay discarded against the wall, having been reduced to an eerie porcelain carcass after the blast. Seeing him on his knees, defeated the way he was, you would think that Talid hadn't noticed the fire encroaching all over the first floor, but what else could he do but scream? Who else could he turn to? The gods? Without his personal retinue, Talid was turned again to nothing but a weak runt. The deer who could barely gather strength to push down a handle. All the money in the world would not make the door budge.
Sep!
A presence creeped up behind the treasurer, casting a large shadow over the door he was so desperately pulling against. Talid gasped at the grim apparition. At the grim apparition, it only stared back. In the dark void between the flames engulfing the corridor, Adder's eye shone an unnatural blue.
How?
Questions sank back into his throat the moment a massive hand fell on his shoulder. But the gesture betrayed no grudge. Talid was gently pushed out of the way. One short shove and the door flew open. Tendrils of fire and smoke grasped at them. But Talid still ran in first.
Sep! Answer me!
There was no Sep in that room. No answers and no sign of life. There was dark smoke and char. There was fire roaring over them, devouring the curtains and the woodwork. And in a corner, curled on what remained of a bed, a charred silhouette cut against an envelope of flames. No, not flames exactly. The moneylender could only recognize the creature in front of him by the blue embers that once formed her eyes.
Pumpkin.
Talid extended a hesitant hand towards the licks of fire. They seemed to lash at him, making him scream in pain as he recoiled. As if beckoned by a sound beyond Talid's senses, the dead man behind him started lumbering forward.
Don't you dare touch my...
With ease, the ease with which Adder's form grabbed Talid by the neck and tossed him through the window would have certainly been a surprise to both. The red deer flew across the room and into the balcony, nearly toppling the woodwork as well. It was the mercy of the lattice that spared him from death this time, not Adder's. Once more, he could do nothing but watch as Adder kneeled down and gently kneeled down and destroyed his sister's life. The silhouette of the ruminant was no more. What Adder lifted into his hands may as well have been a heap of ash with bells. The embers around what remained of Sep crawled over Adder's body, gently kissing over every cut and bruise, giving life back to him as they faded away. Lattice? Alright. My pronunciation of building structures apparently needs work. One last speck of light buried itself into Adder's heart, glowed one last time and disappeared. So followed the eerie glow in Adder's eye, vanished in a calm blink.
What?
The only one remained in the room, a confused boy, a lifeless body, and a fire threatening to kill them all. No, I lie. There was Talid too. Much too shocked to pay any mind to Adder's new spouted fear of him. He lifted himself off the ground, dusted himself, and took a handkerchief to his nose to wipe away some of the blood.
Follow me.
Adder didn't have time to think, much less hesitate. He followed suit. Through the empty corridors of burning debris, Taled walked in front of the Adder, leading him with determination. His fame of having ice-cold blood didn't betray him.
What happened? Where'd the cuts go? I thought I was about to.
Yeah, it seems like Sep might be dead. I'm not gonna hold my breath quite yet. Well, we don't know, but seems maybe it's possible.
Cease your useless yapping. I cannot answer your questions.
They arrived at the old winery of sorts, where Adder finally allowed himself to the mental space to doubt Taed's intentions. He certainly wasn't sure how to feel about the moneylender unbolted a unconscious clean grill and signaled him to pass first.
We cannot risk leaving her exposed to the elements. This is the best I can offer.
Her?
Adder turned his head to where the hands he had automatically kept locked against his torso since he came to. He felt icy and cold. The realization of what it was that he was guarding so fiercely made his stomach churn right up to his throat.
Don't let a single speck fall.
Adder turned his head between the pile of ash and Taed, who was already making his way into the grail. Any child could have told you what to do with the ashes of the departed. Throw them in the air, sink them in the sea. Let the current take them away, so the Hatsa may carry their strength into their new body. Holding on to them was wrong, but then again, nobody wanted to be right. Splash, splash, their hooves felt short-lived. Their hooves felt short-lived prints in the dew, covering the gravel below them. In other circumstances, Adder would have pondered why Taled lacked a sense of smell. It was only logical reason he could find as to why the loner seemed willing to spend his days crawling around dark passages and sewers. As it stood, however, Adder could only keep his eye focused on his palms and the glow emanating from them. She's a wizard, Harry.
It's not true, Fire. It shouldn't pose any risk of combustion.
Taed wasn't talking to himself. Talking to him, not really. Or he was talking to himself, I guess. Messed up that line. He mumbled secret whispers to himself as they traversed into the overwhelming darkness, guided only by the flickering light that Sep's remains offered. It gave neither of them any consolation.
She's strong enough. She'll make it, she will.
It became obvious to Adder at some point that Adder wasn't just trying to reassure himself anymore.
Why are you helping me?
I am not. I am using you to ensure her safety.
A terrible laugh exploded before it reached Adder's float. It sounded miserable.
You really are like two peas in a pod.
Don't you dare take such liberties with me! You only stand before me because my sister needs you more alive than I want you dead! Once that stops being the case, I will come and claim my dues.
Taed turned briskly and made it into the darkness, far from Adder's reach. Adder tried to pick up the pace as well, but soon he realized that with every step, whatever remained of Sep glowed a little less brightly.
Mr. Taylor, wait!
There was no need for that. Taed suddenly stopped in what seemed like a dead end. Before Adder had a chance to voice any concerns, a fugitive ember flew up from Adder's hands, revealing a small metallic ladder into the old brick wall and vanished into a trap door.
Go. Take her to Pertok. He will know what to do.
Aren't you coming?
I cannot be seen with either of you. Just go. This conversation never happened.
There was no point in arguing with Taed. Even Adler knew this. It was Taed, however, who seemed to forget. The moneylender hadn't even walked a few paces when he turned back towards Adder. He drew a knife and held it, the bloodstained edge high enough for Adder to remind the color of his own veins.
Keep her safe, no matter the cost. If anything happens to Septut, I will not grant you twice the kindness of death. The city will be painted in red.
Tay had disappeared into the tunnels, but his presence remained strong. There was no way but forward. Adder looked down one last time at the heap of dust within his hands, and the tinkling bells grazing his palms. The image of the woman he had loved dissolved it into something unrecognizable. He felt his chest heave as he tried to choke back a sob. He couldn't afford to think yet. He didn't want to risk a single tear falling over the fire. Adder started climbing the ladder with only his right hand, and his teeth being extremely careful not to let a single ash fall from his arm. Daylight seared into Adder's pupil, burning in an image of pale silhouettes of clouds and buildings and people all around. The absent sun had returned, and it was doing him no favors, here in an alley on the edge of Pilgrim Hill. At first, he tried to walk quietly, to mind his step, to not tumble in the slightest. But it made no difference. He soon came to realize that the weight in his hands was starting to feel lighter. There was truly less and less of Sepp with every step he took. Adder trudged against the agitated, gossiping masses gathering around 3rd Street, cutting right through the throng of people, looking at the sky and panicking over the smoke in the distance. He never exerted his body like this, and something in the back of his head was screaming for him to stop. And Adder wasn't used to listening to his brain, and he wasn't about to start now. The Temple of Hirab, at last, but the gate was shut, and it was usually would be only be at night.
No! No! What? Come on! Open up! It's me! Please!
His mind struggled to recall who it was that would usually open the gates for him, but he banged the doors desperately all the same, well aware that he couldn't push them down, and that they wouldn't welcome the likes of him anymore.
Stay with me. Stay with me. We're here. It'll be all right.
Adder pulled his handkerchief out of his sash and wrapped it around the cooling ashes. He checked to see that something still glowed within its makeshift container. Desperate now, Adder spit both hands, rubbing them together, and sank his fingers into the crumbling wall, grabbing the knot of the handkerchief with his teeth. As he started to climb towards the forge, one broken brick after the other, the whole front threatening to fall under his hands. He would get there. He would make his way to Pertok, and he would save Sepp no matter what. If he fell, he'd climb again. He'd break his way through the wall if he had to. He'd take down the whole temple brick by brick if there was no other way.
Yes? Who's there?
And then, like so unaware of Adler's turmoil and ensuing determination, the huge metal gate slowly opened, innocently. This was the person we saw at the beginning of, was it chapter 2 or 3? I think it might have been chapter 3. But we never really introduced ourselves fully to them. They were just kind of there and gone. Inside, he found a goat. They exchanged silent glances. She gawked at him, clearly flummoxed at the sight of Adder trying to climb the wall. He stared at her briefly, wounded about how quickly he'd been replaced in his sweeping duties. A moment later, at the tip of the broom, was raised like a spear against him.
Go down off the wall! Now!
He could hardly blame her. A shaggy, flustered, gigantic deer with a handkerchief in his mouth, burnishing hand marks on his chest and singed fur all over his body probably wasn't the friendliest sight. And he wasn't about to help his case.
What?
Pertok, the merchant! Red, the merchant! Where is he?
I don't understand.
White beard, red fur, fancy hat, maybe on fire! You can't miss him!
Adder finally craned his neck back from the temple far behind the gate to the ibex right in front of him. She looked panicked and short of poking him in the eye with the broomstick.
I don't know.
Adder's mouth a hardly felt thanks as he rushed in past her and took a look at and took a right turn into the inner patio. Focused as he was, he barely noticed the goat following him through the cloister.
Wait! Dear, wait, please!
I'm real sorry, man, but I ain't got time to.
No, wait! I said wait! I'm sorry, I give you fear. You're in problems, I see. I can listen them. That's why you come at the excuse me. Give me a...
The little goat put a hand on her chest, clambering toward a nearby column. Adder couldn't help but stop and approach her out of concern. Once she had regained some breath, she jumped back to her full, limited height.
You need help. I'm wrong? I know a deer must have problems, or they come into Hirap. But you are welcome. Do up na deer chow, yes? Explain me what happened with less, hurry. I help you how I can.
Adder moved one eye around the column maid, biting his tongue so hard that he could have drawn blood. He wanted to look anywhere but at the cluelessly optimistic stranger staring expectantly at him. He had to keep Sep safe. He had to find Pertok. He could keep running until he came up with a way to make it all right. But there was nowhere to run. He was already a dead man walking. He could very well be carrying a corpse for all he knew. Trusting a helpful young woman with the second biggest secret he carried in his chest hardly seemed a reckless choice at this point.
It ain't me that needs help.
The goat furrowed her eyebrows, confused, but Edder didn't elaborate. He merely opened up the handkerchief just to leave enough for her to take a peek in. A tiny dying light offered no warmth awaited inside. The girl remained frozen for a second, looking at the spark, and then she looked at Adder straight in the eye, with her mouth still agape.
No time to explain.
No.
The goat took a deep breath, eyes shut in a resolute expression. Without another word, she dropped the broom and sprinted across the patio. Adder didn't hold a single trace of doubt in his rattled bones that she would be back, but he couldn't just wait for her to return either. While his mind hesitated, his hooves led him to the forge. It only made sense. He wasn't a smith, but he was merely a broom boy. But if there was one thing apprentices were closely acquainted with, it was fanning fires. This he'd done every single day of this long year. Edder cleaned the fire pit as best as he could, and made a little nest with what remained of Sep. He tore the handkerchief into pieces, and then he placed Sep's spark on top. The exhausted boy threw his weight over the bellows time and time again, rhythmically, praying to whatever god could hear him that he wouldn't just accidentally blow her soul away. The echo of tiny hooves running up the stairs announced the arrival of the sweeping goat, who carried a small tower of books with her. Once settled on the table, she began sorting through the documents, sending Adder from corner to corner to fetch offerings for the flickering flame.
Get coal, good coal, and not burn before. Dirma Soma, bless rocks, clean with fire salt.
Oh, a purification salts! The power ones! I know Pertok kept some around.
Adder gathered the salt and the coals and all the remains of Sep's form in the center of the pit. He grabbed a pipe and blew into it directly, too scared to even try the bellows anymore. Or scared to even try the bellows anymore. Then they waited. They steeled their hearts and stared. There was no forge and no temple anymore, only the coal existed. Nothing happened for the longest time. When they were just about ready to give up. Whoosh. A dark blue flame consumed all the items around as it burned tall and proud, finally returning back to the tranquil flame that trembled slightly before the two shocked blue things. Jesus, man. The deer and the goat looked at each other. They screamed incomprehensibly in their respective languages. They smashed their heights together in an extremely uncoordinated impromptu hug, which ended with Adder picking up the goat and spinning her in the air once more before letting her go in panic. Even so, there was no end to their cheer. They jumped up on and on excitedly all over the forge, celebrating something they couldn't even start to understand. Adder finally fell to the city ground before the fire pit, watching the flames burn in a blur somewhere beyond his snout. The goat hurriedly knelt down next to him.
Are you okay?
No, I'm Adder.
I'm sorry, Ada. I'm Zhao. Are you okay?
It was just a... Never mind. I'll survive. And if I'm not the only one anymore, it'll be all thanks to you, ma'am. You just saved us. Never knew we got a hero working for hero.
No, I am nothing of the sort. I'm just the new priestess. Zhao. As I said, right, Sinar, welcoming everyone to the temple is literally what I was born to do.
No. You're really going above and beyond, Miss Priestess. I ain't never had a divine nothing chase after me to save my ass anywhere else.
Yes. I guess I'm playing to my strengths, whichever they may be. But I appreciate and accept the compliment, truly, misguided as it is.
Adder knitted his brow together tightly, a realization threading itself, wit by wit, in his exhausted brain.
Hey, when did your Sirnar get so good?
Oh, that's so kind of you. Thank you. I wouldn't consider myself fluent by any stretch, but I have a good ear for it. I mean, I have a lot of practice hearing the merchants in the caravan speak every day, and...
No, right now, I mean. It's so much better than it was before. When did it get so... Hold up. It's working! It's working, ain't it? I'm doing the eye magic thing!
A magic thing? Oh, you're a gaze reader?
Darn right I am! Sam,
The flame burned gingerly in its bed, stamping Adder's enthusiasm to the ground. Yo slowly swiveled her head between Adder and the fire pit, lacking words in any language to even attempt to start talking about what had happened. Still, she smiled.
Would you be so kind as to introduce us?
She's... Well, other than probably calling me an idiot, she's... Yusif.
The goat fell completely silent. It was an anguished silence, the kind which one has a lot to absorb.
I think we owe you a real big explanation, Miss Zhao.
Man, there's a lot of narration in this one. Adder painted in broad, flattering strokes. Quite the picture. One of a boy escaping from his past, hiding as far as he could, running towards an impossible future, resigning himself to a life of bare minimums. For he deserved nothing better, of a boy losing all sense of direction. He told her the story of a woman who had the misfortune of being loved by him, or making him feel special. How much better she would have been without him, of how much he hurt her, and how she always despaired for wanting to hurt him back. He had told her that just moments ago, not that far away, how convinced he was that he ought to be dead, how the sun had come and gone without her. Then silence came back, longer this time. When Joe spoke again, it was with reverential fear, one born from the horror of committing the highest blasphemy.
I came to Elam because I had a dream a long time ago, Adder. A dream that left me awestruck. I dreamed of a crown of light, and I chose to don it upon me, thinking myself proud and wise for it. I knew I was wrong, but I couldn't keep the thought locked within my chest. When I told the seeress about this dream, she had me banished from the temple, sentencing that it wasn't a dream fit for a priestess with any sense of decency left. I would go on a pilgrimage to face true hardship and shed off my hubris,
or I would burn my robes and walk in the shade for the rest of my life. And yet, there truly is no darkness on Dakna.
Joe looked at the fire pit. A small smile crossed her face. Her expression turned somber once more as she turned towards Adder.
I'd spent so long as a caravan guard that I thought I'd never see my journey complete. But when I finally arrive at the temple, when I finally find a glimpse of my whole peace, the sun leaves the skies, and you arrive with it.
I'm so sorry for...
Don't you apologize! This is great! I'm sorry, that came out wrong. I mean, I'm just so happy that the Jasif would require my help. I really should have known from the moment I saw your honors, but I couldn't believe my own eyes.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, as far as, like, writing and, like, characterization and, like, pacing goes, I think this one's... I know pacing, yeah, chapter 3 kind of chugged, but, like, I think it's been really good. Though she clearly tried, Jiao was thoroughly unable to hide the mix of excitement, hope, and envy on her face. As she looked at Adder, this only added to his confusion.
My what?
Your honors.
She hovered a finger over her own shoulders and chest, roughly mirroring where Adder's mark stood on his body.
Oh, yeah. She honored me with these, all right.
Yes! We're so fortunate that the Jasif decided to bless you! You wouldn't have been able to carry her soul to safety otherwise!
To be fair, Your Holiness, I reckon I wouldn't have been able to carry her soul all the way up here any other way.
Certainly! It would have been horrifying. Her power would have carbonized you.
Adder chuckled awkwardly to himself, suddenly very conscious of how thankful he was that his mean, neurotic corpse were wasted on the pious epics beside him. He chose to take the tiny flame flickering upwards inside the forge as a sign that someone had understood his words. A sigh welled up deep within Adder's chest. It would stay there for a long time.
What's gonna happen to her now?
I can't answer that. There is no answer that remains eternally unfound, but we should be wary of the plenty that remain unfounded. Only a fool speaks freely of that which one doesn't know.
Well, I'll say, that sounded just right up Sep's alley. You some kind of Sephy magic thing, too?
Far from it. The seer has always said that Hirub was wise to steer my senses away from the Hatsa, as knowing me, I could trip on the current itself.
Adder's face drooped a little more with each word Jiao said.
One thing I can say for certain is that I have started several fires in my life. Candle fires, lamp fires, bonfires, ceremonial fires, kitchen fires, wildfire. What I mean to say is that it looks like a healthy, holy fire to me.
Yeah, we did the best we could, didn't we? We'll figure something out.
Figure out how to speak out of your mouth instead of your ass, you traitorous venison.
The patron!
Shut up! Don't you dare utter that word in my presence again, or I'll crack your skull open and have that mustard seed you wear as a braid for breakfast!
Bertok stopped yelling for a moment. He flicked one floppy ear halfway up.
Is that my Aina with you?
I'm afraid not, Seer. It's just me, Jiao, the new...
Then you shut up too!
Adder and Jiao exchanged a brief look, and understanding that they now shared a small, inexplicable bond through their shared laboral misery. But this was not the moment to discuss the benefits of unionizing. Adder's brain was working overtime already.
Aina. Yeah, Aina! I saw her earlier, sir. She was with her... sister?
Ah, that girl. The storm remains unpredictable, no matter its form.
The merchant removed a few straws from Sep's nest, making the flame lash at him.
Always one to bite the hand that feeds you, daughter of Thor.
Adder and Jiao shared concerned looks behind his back.
How did you know she...
I already told you, you nimwit! The stench of a Jasip is not one to ever escape my nostrils. It should be ambition, conquest, and pride. But I smell nothing but despair now. Her soul must be starved. Who did this to her?
I think she probably did this to herself. Not on purpose, I don't think. See, Miss Rochelle took her away to her room, and the tailor tried to kill me, but then I looked up, and he looked too, and the desert rose caught fire, and the sun went out, and...
Ugh, I knew this would happen.
What do you mean you knew?
I mean that I knew! It was obvious. That brat's always been too weak-hearted to be Jacif. I don't care what that compost brain tree says. She should have grown to become a barmaid in whatever roadside inn that delusional doe stole her from. Let history forget about her. She's not fit for royalty.
Something snapped a little in Adder's face. A thought must have gone sideways as he grabbed the old man's dinky frame by the collar of his tunic and lifted him off the ground.
If you were so sure that it was all gonna go sideways, you ought to have done something about it when you got the chance! You should have protected her, you old bastard! Not just shrug and say, I told you so!
I did what I could for that child.
You ain't done crap! You really gonna tell me to my face that you call sending her back without her memories or whatever it was you did, protecting her?
The gods must be crueler than I thought to make you the fool I scried then. What a dangerous thirst for knowledge you hide under that stupid facade of yours, son of Girthav.
I'm hearing lots of words, and none of them is sorry. Do something about this!
Ada, put him down already! That's no way to treat an elder!
Adder glanced at Joe and then back at Furtalk. A long, deep breath later, the old man had his hooves back on the ground.
Turn those wax-ridden ears of yours to me, child. I have but one piece of advice. I'm not the only one who can sense a weakness like this. My daughter, she's even better than me. And I know she still hungers for revenge. Don't let her remember. Keep the sun away from her.
With that, Furtalk turned around and began limping downstairs.
Hold up, that's it? Where are you going?
To my room, to resume my nap where I left it. I'm far too old to be any god's milkmaid.
What are we supposed to do then?
Get your ass out of my temple, that's what! Don't you dare ever show your face around here again, son of Girthav! You and that loose piece of charcoal are not welcome anymore!
Say what? Where are we supposed to go?
I don't care! You chose to stick your antlers where you shouldn't have. Now live with the consequences.
Adder remained locked in place, simmering in his rage. That pot had been boiling for far too long.
I'm gonna show you consequences?
Before Adder could put a full stop on that sentence, the world turned dark.
What happened, Mr. Bard?
Adder opened his one eye slowly. He could tell dusk was creeping, up on the city somewhere to his right. Only the glow of the fire burned in the forge managed to light up his memories.
Ada, you shouldn't be up. Go back to sleep.
Boy found himself helplessly pushed back into a pile of something that rumbled and shifted beneath his back. It smelled like charcoal with a sheet on it, to put visitors in the mind of a cozy bed.
I can't. Ugh. Where are we? Is this the forge?
I thought you wouldn't want to be separated from her.
Didn't Mr. Peartalk say?
I know what the seer said, but that's not the way of the gods. I'm not letting him drive you out in your state. Not even if you're the filthy, backstabbing daughter Salia I've heard so much about.
The what?
The what?
Anyway, please lie down. You're in no condition to walk.
Sure I am. Look at me. If I fall down, I could just cartwheel away.
Ada, this is serious.
One look at Jiao's face and Adder immediately lay down.
I've known warriors to stand and fight long after their consciousness failed them, driven only by instinct. but it was always a matter of time until their body gave up. Some of them never got up again. A failing mind is no joke. I wish I had noticed sooner. I can only imagine how hard you must have fought to protect the Jasif and reach us bearing wounds like those.
Come now, they ain't so.
Adder held onto the water basin next to him. He immediately screeched in pain at the motion. His face was a myriad of cuts and bruises. The long gash on his neck still bled. His left hand now broken beyond use. The deepest, most critical wound in his chest had been stitched, tightly bandaged, but blood still peeked through the fabric. Looks like all his wounds came back. All the injuries he thought magically healed made all the worse by exertion.
Damn it, Sip! Oh, why's it always gotta be smoke and mirrors with you?
There is no magical cure for injury, Ada. Time takes time.
Nah, time lives inside your mind. Didn't you know?
Adder sat up all of a sudden, finally taking note of the situation at hand. He immediately regretted doing any of that.
How long have I been out?
Less than half a day. Not nearly enough to recover from whatever it was that stomped over you, so please just go back to sleep.
No, sleep! What are you saying? I can't be wasting time like this. There's Ana. It's Sep now. Y'all's gonna be somewhere out there too, and 3, I beg you. I ain't got time. I ain't got it in me to do this alone.
Adder tottered across the forge, unable to command his legs to stop trembling. His fall came as a surprise to either of them, but it still managed to put a dent in his heart. The boy only looked up from the depths of his despair when he finally had a hand on his shoulder, a reassuring smile half covered by messily kept bangs following her.
I know it must feel hopeless right now, but you're not alone, Ada. And I'm not just talking about the physical realm. The sun is always ahead of us, lighting the way to tomorrow, even when we can't see it. And now it's literally shining right in front of us. It will be okay, okay?
Adder turned his face towards the tranquil flame in the forge. Though Adder was used to seeing Jasif as a far more solid existence than Joe, and therefore couldn't share her optimism, the fire didn't give a single damn about his feelings. It was just there, a lazy flame resting in its cozy abode, despite everything that was going on around it. Just about the most Sep thing it could do. Uncaring, unbothered. A cruel god.
Besides, this is the royal temple of Hirub. Not just a place of worship, but a monument to Barha knowledge. We have the wisdom of hundreds of sages before us, preserved to piece together the answers to every question we could formulate.
How's a bunch of old dead people gonna help us stop one from...
Something twitched above him. Then came a growl, like that of a heavy rock being dragged. Yellow gleams stared at them from the shadows above the forge. Joe made to turn around, following his line of sight, but Adder immediately put a hand on her shoulder and snapped her whole body back towards
No,
him.
you know what? You're 3,000% right. This place is filled to the brim with books and stuff, but you know what's sad? None of that matter to me, because I can't even read my own name. All Anderson, son of Gerfat, can offer is his bronze, because he's just smart enough to know better than to offer his brains. And I won't be able to give even that much if I don't rest a little more. Can I ask you for a teeny tiny little favor, though? Could you help me find my shepherd's crook? My walking stick, that is. I used to carry it all the time before I came down to the city. It sure would be a big help right now. But I ain't got no clue where in the temple I could have left it.
Of course! You don't even need to ask. And please, take as long as you want. I'm sure the seer will eventually come to his senses and allow you to stay. We just have to hold on a little longer.
Adder felt a weird twinge of guilt for the lie he just told. He actually knew with astounding precision where his old Stafford shaft was. Right there in the corner of the table, where he always used to have his lunch. But now was hardly the time to fetch it. Adder pretended to lie down in his pile of charcoal, keeping his eye closed after Zhao's steps were out of earshot. When he opened it again, a wolf was straddling his chest.
Hey, boss, you here to watch me work? I was just about to get on with my day after the beating I took earlier. Thanks for dropping by, at least.
Haven't I been nice to you, Bones?
Huh?
I rescued you. I brought you food. I gave you a name. Haven't I been nice?
Yeah.
Then why did you lie to me? That's a very naughty thing to do.
I was scared?
And that's the part I don't understand. Isn't this what you signed up for? Did you change your mind? Would you rather run and let the deer make a bloody mess out of you than stay by your nice friend's side?
Eka finally climbed off Adder's makeshift bed. She started roaming around the forge.
By all means, tell your new friend all about us. I'd love to have an excuse to try some gazelle.
She's a goat, and leave her alone. I wasn't gonna say a word about y'all.
Wow, that's what I call a scary face right there. I didn't know a deer could snarl. Did Aina teach you that?
Yeah. Is she with you?
I hope so. She hasn't misbehaved once since she came back. I suppose it was just a bout of sentimentalism. I heard she was prone to those. Could have been a pretty perfect night if two mischievous landlubbers hadn't run and ruined our party.
Ika slid back towards Adder as he made an effort to sit up from his bed to meet her. She bent her body until her eyes were in line with his and then smiled.
Do you want to know how I found you?
Do you want to tell me?
The wolf pointed her long snout against the gash on Adder's neck and smirked. Oh, it followed his blood.
You cannot hide from me.
Still smiling, she dragged a soft claw thumbing across his bandage. The thin canvas tore easily under her nail, revealing a trail of fresh blood. Elka traced the outline of the cut on her finger, making Adder gasp in pain.
A lesser wolf would have eaten you right away. How fortunate you are that I am Eka.
As if to finish making her point, Eka took the bloody fingertip to her mouth and licked it clean, holding Adder's gaze all the while. He didn't dare break eye contact, not even once. Something deep down told him he couldn't afford to flinch if he wanted to live.
You know, I learned something very interesting thanks to your escape. It seems the concept of family is quite different here to where I come from. Fawns are pups, and siblings and littermates are similar enough. But mothers, let alone fathers? It's hard to have those when it takes a village to raise a litter. So when I followed you here and saw the red angry grazer upstairs, I thought that maybe I could have 2 or 3 fathers. It sounded right to my ears. But then I thought about it again and I figured, nah, they were just messing with you.
Eka put a hand on the wall and craned her body forward, forcing Adder back down.
Where's my dad, puppy? I can't seem to find him.
Oh, well. Ash is over there. Adder turned his face towards the forge. He half expected Sept of shrugging back at him.
Dead?
Eka's ears perked up. She threw her head back, clearly doubting this claim. Then she raised her snout in the air and sniffed around. She tilted her head to one side and the other as if to fail to make sense of something that was very evident.
Oh, that sucks. Or maybe it doesn't. Your friend kind of sounded like a splinter in your gums, if you catch my drift. A big splinter. No, an enormous, juicy, fatty marrow bone. The whole loin, really.
As he watched the trail of drool fall off Ika's jaw, Adler tried not to think about what would have become of Sepp if they had studied at the ship. That was the very instant he decided he wouldn't be caught without his staff ever again.
Well, whatever. I guess that saves us some time then.
Hey, so I know this really ain't the kind of question one ought to ask in this situation, but, just to make sure I'm getting this right, boss, aren't you, mad about this whole thing?
What's the word? It's an ambiguous situation. Like, who's even at fault here? You for lying? Or me for thinking the first gazelle I saw would be my father? All I knew about the two of you is that you were a yellow deer and a very angry red gazelle. And that wasn't a whole lot to go by. It could have been anyone. It's hard to tell grazers apart just by shape and size. You all smell delicious. If only every deer was like you, Bones.
Then I wouldn't be easy to tell apart anymore, right?
Wow, I hadn't even thought about that. You're a thinker, puppy. A really smart one. That's how I know you won't try to trick me a second time. Remember, I'm your boss now.
Haven't forgotten once, ma'am.
Ma'am. Ma'am. It doesn't get old.
Eka put her hat down as she walked towards the colonnade that looked over the yard and 3rd Street.
To be perfectly clear, Bones, if you weren't so important as you are, I would have plucked out every last bristle of hair on your body and eaten you from the inside out by now.
Adder followed Eka's line of sight. Some 50 Burans had gathered in the patio in the temple, forging small unconnected groups like those that would gather before shows.
Lucky, lucky Bones. Always the star of a crowd. The next time you find yourself in the middle of 1,000 stairs, keep in mind that every breath you take because you're more useful to me alive than dead. I saved you. I kept you safe. And just like that, I will tear you apart, limb by limb, and feast upon your entrails while you look, if you give me one more reason to.
Eka dragged her hands lazily up the sides of Adder's neck until they rested comfortably at the base of his jaw. She grinned.
I'll find us some cake the next time I visit. Don't think I've forgotten. Be a good pup now. Don't get your head bitten off.
She put an end to her remark with a little clank of her teeth. Probably shouldn't do that. There's a false crown in my mouth. At last, the captain slinked away. A sudden thump near the doorway made Adder jump in place. He slowly turned around, just to find a frozen goat and a lot of random canes scattered across the ground behind him.
Miss Priestess, gee, you're fast, ain't you? Sorry to make you run around like that. Turns out my stick was just...
Who was the tall lady?
Adder needed a second to even attempt to decipher what it was he was looking at. Jill's eyes were practically sparkling.
That was she's my boss's boss. Dropping by for a quick inspection. Never mind her, though. What's that all about?
Adder extended a finger towards the small crowd gathered in the plaza at the other side of the gates.
The congregation? They've been here for a while. We're in the Temple of Hirub. Isn't that normal?
Ma'am, I've been playing errand boy for well over a year now. Whatever that is, normal it ain't. I ain't ever seen a gazelle pray here. How come there's 3 dozens of them now?
Oh, that must mean my efforts to spread the good news about the return of the Jasif while you rested must have borne some fruit.
You promised them fruit!
I honestly wasn't sure anyone was going to pay any mind to me given my linguistic skills. But I suppose a few Barhans must have seen the sun disappear over the city and taken that as a sign.
The desert rose, Adder thought to himself, feeling drops of sweat fall down his back like hail. They thought the desert rose. They saw the desert rose going up in flames and took it as a sign.
I can't believe I'm having any part in this. The children of Hirub coming together to wait for the Jasif to be returned to us. This is marvelous. We should ask the seer to officiate a ceremony.
Say what? You want us on a pyre or what? Leave the patron alone. That man got a drop of holiness in his body. He'll only curse us out.
That's a risk I'm willing to take. We can't not pray now if Heirloom's faith is truly so feeble. It's our moment to be audacious, inspire them, and show them the way of the...
Oh, no, ma'am. Working at the temple don't make me a priest. You gonna pray all you want. I'm out of here.
Me? But I couldn't possibly... I mean, yes, I am nominally a priestess, but I'm the kind that sweeps the temple and lays the table, not the kind that lectures. I can barely string 2 words together in Basaktet, never mind Sanar.
Jal, come on. You don't gotta give the speech of your life. Just talk them up a little so they can go home in peace. I'll be back there keeping an eye on y'all as queen till you're done. Okay?
Ada, do you believe in fate?
Not when you ask me like that.
I know we just met, and I know that you're barely in any state to stand vertically, but I'm sure there's a reason destiny brought us together.
The main one being Elagrab's terrified of fire and you were walking by when I got sacked, I bet.
Not that. I'm talking about something deeper than chance. Providence, the work of the divine. The gods give where they take, Ada. You have been blessed with a loud and beautiful voice to make up for your looks, and the talent to read gazes, to know the hearts of those around you, to make up for everything else.
What are you trying to rope me into here?
I'm positive that you could make a great orator if you tried. Would you kindly translate the prayers for me?
No way! Nope. Nuh-uh, ma'am. Don't take me wrong. If you'd asked me a week ago, I'd have gladly got that done for you, Miss Priestess. I lend my voice box to my friends on the daily. But I can't show my face in front of the whole city right now. We'll be in trouble.
Oh, I know this struggle well, but please don't be so hard on yourself. You're not so exceedingly horrifying to look at, even with the wounds. You're pretty leggy, that helps.
This ain't about my mug. I'm saying I'm a dead man if any of them recognize me.
Ada reached into his satch and pulled out a wanted poster Miss Rochelle had thrown at him on the way to the Desert Rose.
Yerba mud. That is quite the list of crimes. What does this, fornication part mean?
Dream of Californication. Speaking of lyrics,
I think it's stabbing someone with a fork. And that much I can promise you I ain't never done.
Joe's hands shook a little as she gripped the paper. She bent it into a ball and screamed to the measure she could over it.
It doesn't matter. I said I do not care about your dubious past, and I stand by it. I serve the sun, and so do you, and that makes us friends now. And friends are supposed to help their friends, help them give speeches in front of the whole village.
Meaning...
We need a makeover.
A what?
As much as she tried to hide it, the elation and pride and the prospect of getting up to what I'm sure some can be referred to as shenanigans were playing on Jiao's face. Ada was not keen on leaving Sepp unattended, but he followed Jiao all the way to the same to the uncharacteristically well-maintained inner sanctum.
I stumbled upon this room while I was looking for the broom closet. It's full of all sorts of regalia from ages past, and I'm willing to say it looks rather authentic. Since the seer very explicitly forbade you from showing your face around the temple.
The holy little swindler put a hand on a helmet and smiled.
No, that's smart. I got that part. I'm just wondering why you got a pile of clothes on your hands, too.
Ada, the future of this city depends on me finding a suitable dress. The cowl very much makes the monk.
Ada raised a skeptical thumb to his chin.
And Ilgrab never mentioned the tall lady. She's our boss now. You can't leave me behind. I can't be caught wearing the same 3 dusty rags the next time we see her.
That's real holy of you, priestess.
One can't honor the gods if they do not honor themselves, Ada. Do you understand? Love is a righteous path. Love is the work of the divine.
Joe pulled Ada's face towards hers, squishing his cheeks like pancakes.
And I'm a devout believer, see?
I still don't get it, but you know what? You do you. I can't really judge nobody for putting their job on the line for a pretty face. Just pray there won't be a next time with her.
And so began.
How about this one?
We need to find the right helmet for your face shape. How do you feel about chest plates?
The crucial moment in history.
You don't think pink is too last season?
I'm afraid I'm not familiar with heirloomite fashion, which may suit our purposes just fine.
In which a fawn and a kid.
Would you like to try holding my spear instead?
Appreciate it, but I like my eye where it is. You know what we could use, though? A comb.
Finding themselves in the mirror.
Gods above. Is that really me? I'm feeling so dashing.
Completely forgot what they came to do.
You look like a different person.
I never knew you were a miracle worker, priestess.
You make miracles easy.
Oh, shut. Wait, what?
This has been so much fun! We should do it again sometime.
Yeah, we really oughta. What were we doing now?
Joe and Adler finally finished parading up and down the shed and staggered out towards the yard.
Look! There's someone coming out! Where's the Yasif? We want to see him!
Is that a goat? With a yellow deer?
Good people of Earlham, we thank you kindly for your patience. I'm only here to deliver the word of
Joe.
the famous Jow, one of the very last true priestesses of Herod himself. She who has braved the long journey through the steppes on a pilgrimage from the distant frozen lands of
Actamwersirat.
very far up north, where the ibexes live, I think. Now, I'm gonna shut up and let her do the talking now.
Joe cleared her throat. It would still be a few moments until words dared to come out. She started to speak in Basaktet, soft and barely audible at first to the first row of guests. Adder looked at her, nodded to himself, and started relaying the message to the best of his abilities.
There's an old Basak Saran poem that has survived for generations in my hometown. Where the rivers of fate start, each soul its due receives. When the rivers thirst until mud runs dry, the sun still burns for our Jasif. Could anybody tell me how the first Jasif came to be?
Mutters, harumphs, and coughs. A few people raise their hands awkwardly.
The Barhans pray to the sun for protection and stuff?
Joe smiled and nodded.
You may find this poem tells it a bit differently, though. When Hirub created Barhankind, he asked the master of the suns, Jasse, to guard his new creations while he took a nap. Our sun was so zealous about her job that she wouldn't let a cloud hover over Basak Serat. During Hirub's rest, the kingdom became a desert. There was no food, no water. It was a calamity, some may say. And yet, the Barhans learned to survive and prosper, for all their enemies fell victim to the heat and lost themselves under the blinding light. We built a civilization of science thanks to the sun's watchful eye. It was after this that the Barhans started worshipping Jasse, and she became so revered that when Hirub returned, our ancestors asked him to bring the sun to Dakna so that they could thank her properly. Hirub agreed to remove Jasse from her heavenly duties for just one day, lending her the shape of her beloved, a chance to walk among her worshippers before she would have to return to the sky. In her day on Dakna, the sun shared food and drink with the Barhans, and she decided to honor them and make them kin. Blessed as she did, for her children were born onto the world, and she never forgot them. For each Jasif who rose, our sun would leave the skies once more to bless her children anew.
Jiao gripped the shaft of her spear and lifted it high in the air so that the golden tip may shine on the last few glimmers in the horizon.
Today, we witnessed a new day without sun. Today, we welcome a new Jasif. We raise our heads and look at the sky with hearts full of pride and at each other, not as north and south, ibex and gazelle, but as Barhans.
Hey, Dreamus.
This is the start of a new era, of new blessings and tribulations we shall face. Pray to Hirab that the Jasif may grow strong. Pray so that all of us Barhans may call ourselves siblings again.
The audience exploded in cheers and exclamations for both Jasif and the priestess.
All right, give it up for Jiao! Woo! If you enjoyed this prayer, please don't forget to tell your friends and leave a donation at the offertory. Have a good night, everyone. Don't get caught roaming outside after curfew.
Kick that like, kick the subscribe button, kick a comment in the comment section. Algorithm. Ho! Praise it be. The spectators mumbled among themselves. They were not yet satisfied.
May we see the Jasif?
Adder and Jow exchanged desperate looks.
No, she's for real tired right now. After all the, heavenly stuff she got to do today. Yep.
Your prayers shall keep us strong. Please, keep praying in whatever measure you can.
Donations! Don't forget the donations. Pour one out for the Queen of Queens.
The crowd disappeared at last, in the manner in which those minds were filled with so much to discuss after a lecture. As soon as they reached the forge, both Jiao and Adder collapsed to the ground like stringless puppets.
I think we did well.
Adder fixed his eye upon the darkness above the forge. He turned on his back and propped himself up on his elbows so as to sit on the ground.
Just well won't do.
Why are you talking like the Sierras now?
Much to her chagrin, Jiao agreed deep down. She got up, dusted herself off, and wandered over the forge to choose a few new books to skim over. Adder, for his part, started gathering every single plank, metal sheet, and loose piece of furniture he could find around the temple. Jiao only raised her head from the page when the hammering started.
Are you barricading the crematorium?
I don't know what that means, but, you know, we gotta protect the Yusuf and stuff from any possible peeping eyes. Yep, that's all. Ain't nothing else could want to hurt us out there. Nope.
I know that it's hypocritical of me to insist on this after everything, but you're in no condition to do physically demanding work, Adder. Why don't we leave that for another day?
I told you, I'm useless. I got no clues what to do or where to start. So I'm trying to focus on the few things I know I can do. Building up walls? And believe it or not, I could do that with my eye closed. But it's the same with you and praying. You're a natural, Miss Jiao.
The sun shines brighter on a liar than a coward.
I don't know what that means, but I'm sure I agree. You agree, Sep?
The flame burned languidly on the forge.
You must be bored out of your mind. Don't worry, love. We'll get you out of there in no time. Jiao's read like 1,000 books already.
I do not have such skills. Please don't get her hopes up. What I have found so far is references to the shifting of shapes that some Jasif displayed at will. It's only been mentioned anecdotally in the accounts I've read so far, so I suppose it wasn't considered a cause for distress or even a show of skill for them. I don't intend any disrespect bringing this possibility up. It's merely my working theory. It could be that our son is temporarily stuck in one of her forms, or even between them. Perhaps something is getting in the way of her powers.
Yeah, thought as much. It's my fault. I could have told you that.
Joe observed in silence as Adder finished nailing impromptu boards across every column. Then he grabbed his helmet and propped up his collar so high that you might have thought he was trying to disguise a wholly different kind of mark.
Like what kind?
It's like...
No, I'm just messing with you. I pop my zits sometimes too.
Heading out now. Gotta do some personal stuff. Look over Sep for me, yeah?
Will you be out long? I don't mean to rush you, but I'm still trying to fix my sleep schedule after the journey, and, I'm starting to run low on funds for food.
Jiao produced a coin purse and opened it completely unprompted for Adder to peruse. Her idea of low funds involved 3 times more money than the average successful slum-dwelling thug could ever manage to mug in a week. Adder scratched the back of his head, accidentally knocking the helmet out of place. What was he even supposed to say in a situation like this? there was a chance he wouldn't be able to return at all.
If I'm not back by dinner time, there's a pantry with a bunch of potatoes near the back, under the tower. The key's inside the red and white plant pot to the left. Anyone asks, you say you found out on your own. Okay, bye!
The moon was absent from the sky that night, not even a hint of the orange orb that drew the colors away from the dusk skies every night, leaving only the emptiness among the stars watching over Dakna. Who could be a better companion for the deer walking towards the market tonight than total darkness itself? It kind of obscured his view of his hands and his limp as he clunked onto his crook, walking with his back straight like an ironing board. It wasn't his first night outside after curfew, and it wouldn't be his last. He knew the right alleys to wander into and properly way to shuffle past the guards patrolling the streets, but he wouldn't use them today. No, the stag didn't hesitate when he walked into the keep. He knew he was supposed to be there. He deserved to be. It was everyone else that needed convincing.
Good evening, kind of fellows.
No response from the guards, lazily looking in his direction. Still, he must have done a decent job at walking like anyone but himself, for he wasn't stopped a single time on the way to Illigrab's office. And what for, he thought. I'm about to put everyone's necks on the line. Adder took a deep breath and pushed the tall doors in.
Illigrab! Are you in there?
Regrettably, as it used to be the case, the tree man was nowhere to be found.
Darn it all to oblivion! He said he'd be here all day! Stupid metaphorsis.
Before Adder had a chance to curse any other literary resources, the metal gates creaked open once again.
Illigrab! Are you in there?
A muscular man with a bandaged head and a comparatively meek gazelle by his side strolled in, paying absolutely no heed to the yellow deer whose blood they curled in the pudding.
Gods! How could a tree be this hard to find? He is a tree, damn it! Why does he even need an office if he never uses it? We should have him move to the garden. Wouldn't you be happier in the garden if you were a tree?
I don't believe I'm qualified to answer such a troubling question, sir.
Well, someone has to be! You, the deer over there, who are you? Are you the gardener? I don't recall authorizing Illigrab to hire any gardeners.
No, I am someone, of course. By ye gods, I am. But thou must not have heard of me. I am the one who is known as Adderson of the Upper Field?
Adder turned around very briefly to scream inside his hands.
How dare you think me so foolish? Of course I have heard of you. Sir Upperfield! Forgive me for being so uncouth. I wasn't aware that we would have a distinguished guest among us tonight. Babbitt! Why wasn't I informed of this visit?
I would have had to be made aware of it first, sir.
No, it ain't like... My good sir, please spare your friend any unpleasantries. It's not his fault. I visited without announcing to speak to an old friend.
You were waiting for Illigrab? Ha! You would fare better trying to find the fabled thornless syllabum in the ridges of Birmacassin. If you've had the misfortune of making an appointment with that tree, you may as well consider your time lost. Where did I leave my manners? Here you are wasting your precious time, and yet I laugh. My judgment must yet remain impaired after the dangerous battle I fought today. To think my demise could have arrived so suddenly, so dishonorably.
Adder puckered his cheek. He had thoughts that he couldn't afford to think.
But enough about me. I noticed a certain foreign cadence as you spoke, Sir Upperfield. Whence may your accent be?
Well, it may be right here at this moment, but its origins lie in your green and distant lands of Tantroo.
Is that true? Then you may have met... No, It couldn't be. You're far too young.
It couldn't be. But it is, my friend. I know who you ask about, and I did know the late Lord Dumar well. I watched him fight many a battle against the moving forests. Your father gave me more than I'll ever be able to return.
Adder put a hand on Ebler's shoulder in a reassuring way. He only realized his mistake when the knight turned his face towards it. Fortunately for him, Sir Askadaz was entirely too moved to notice the extraordinary size of the hand patting him.
This is truly a fateful meeting! Oh, what a caring soul I found when I thought myself most alone! Forget the old shrub you came to see. Please, join me in my palace so that we may feign toast to our newfound friendship!
No! I couldn't possibly, sir. I got very hurried matters to discuss with Mr. Buntalos, and I've heard of the troubles you got yourself into with a fellow countryman of mine.
Right you are, my friend! I cannot afford myself any time to rest. Not until I find him! I know that wretched one-eyed scoundrel must have been involved in the fire today. A single look at his face is enough to... What sort of drivel am I spouting? Please, forgive my lack of decor. It's only his one-eyedness that is wretched. Yours extols your virtues and makes you seem all the mightier a warrior, Sir Upperfield.
Now they're just milking it. That's hilarious.
All is forgiven except age, Sir Askadath.
Such wisdom you hold in spite of your youth. But please, let me make amends with you all the same. I shall listen to your request in lieu of Illigrab, so that you may continue your business anon.
I'm afraid these words are for Mr. Buntalos' ear holes only.
Ah, yes. Secrets are the currency of us better born, are they not? I hope there shall come the day you may open your heart to me as well. I must insist, however, that it would not be wise for you to loll about waiting for the tree man. Go in peace, my friend. I shall let him know you wish to hear back from him.
Mighty grateful, Sir Askadath. I will go and take my leave then.
Yes, yes. It's high time we all return to our duties. Bammit! Write Sir Upperfield's contact information and bring me my polish when you're done!
Adder and Bammit were left alone in Illigrab's ample office.
In case there was any doubt, you have not fooled me for a second, Sir Upperfield. I would like to believe Sir Askadath may have seen through your deceit as well, were he not quite so intoxicated from the pain soothers resulting from your little run-in. Rest assured that I have no interest in dealing with the aftermath of this situation, so I would rather appreciate it if you could make yourself scarce and remain hard to find, for my sake and yours.
Yeah, I guess I live in the Temple of Hirab now.
Duly noted. I shall look for Sir Upperfield everywhere but there.
Hey, before I get, you wouldn't happen to see a red deer somewhere around here? About this big, horns bigger than my hands, always wears a hat.
If you are asking if I have seen such a deer in the dungeons, I most definitely haven't. If we were to speak about an honored guest residing in Sir Askadath's quarters, on the other hand...
Adder's mouth was silent. Oh.
Well, that's one worry off my mind then. Thanks for everything, Mr. Bammit. See you never.
Have a good life.
Adder walked with as much of a spring in his step as he could afford given his condition. The feckle rush of adrenaline and self-satisfaction from the extremely rigged battles of wits with Sir Askadath soon came undone in the dark streets. The acute awareness of our false knight would not have survived any other kind of battle with a broken hand and a few fractured ribs followed him wherever he went. He tried to pick up the pace only to realize he couldn't even run. Adder had been an anxious wreck for as long as he can remember. His threadbare nerves had done much for good in the city, and fear was certainly nothing new, but he'd always felt quite confident in his ability to run from every problem in his life. He never knew the horror quite like now. He'd never known a horror quite like now. Every star seemed like a hungry pair of eyes, every lantern a fire about to swallow the whole city. By the time Adder arrived in the temple, he'd been clenching his fists for so long that his dull hooves had managed to bruise his palms.
I'm back.
No response. Adder pushed the blanket he'd half nailed to the doorway as a makeshift door to the forge he'd made his way in. Joe was nowhere to be found. There was enough to set Adder's brain back into overdrive. A million possibilities pelted his insides, from the morbid to the mundane. He darted across the first floor, desperately looking for a hint of a new tragedy. Just as he was about to start screaming for the priestess, he found her tiny, motionless body. He was barely managed to choke down a sob as he caught her chest rising in a long sigh. Jiao was sleeping quietly in a corner of a long, abandoned kitchen, buried in a pile of books that had at some point collapsed over her. She didn't seem the slightest bit concerned about the dust and a dreadful amount of spiderwebs all around her. Her new clothes lay neatly folded over her lap, next to a small stack of raw potatoes clearly meant for her translator. Adder couldn't even afford the mental space to feel hungry anymore. Restlessness took it all. He looked around one last time, hoping to expel any creatures hiding in the rafters with a mean glance. Once half satisfied with his examination, he sought his peace in a gentle flame hiding inside the forge. The smell of rose and almonds and that coyly sweet perfume Sepp always wore beckoned him. It made him feel at home.
Hey, Sip. I went out looking for Illigraph, but guess what? I ran into Lord Snotty Snout instead. And whoo boy, Miss Rochelle sure did a number on him like you wouldn't believe. He was more hammered than his sword, talking to me all like, Sir Upperfield, my good friend, come drink with me in my palace. I says to him, I say, as if I'd rather drink my own
Adder looked back. There was a priestess just next door. He couldn't possibly say as much of such a thing in front of a priestess.
So, yeah, big surprise. You were right all along. The second I clean up real nice, everyone's listening to me like I'm suddenly worth a damn. I know you never cared about any of that, but I'll let you get me all the clothes you want when you're back. I'll wear my finest for you every day. You can laugh at me and take 'em off and get me all tight.
Adder turned his head back again real quick just to check if Jiao was still sleeping.
Anyway, I'll let you do whatever you want. Whatever makes you happy. I'm waiting for you. Get well soon. I miss you.
Adder stayed up as long as he could, observing the flame in silence so as to not wake Joe up. He lost the staring contest at some point. I think it's 3 hours in. I think there's probably... We're like at the beginning of chapter 5, so I'm going to guess that this is going to go on for a bit more. So I think that's going to be the conclusion next time, though. So Sep is ashes. So Jasif became Sep, became Ash. Am I right? Too soon. So yeah, there's plenty of story threads to kind of still go through. I don't think that this is going to end anytime soon, because like, yeah, Aina, you got the beasts, right? You got the, the whole like, trying to recover that remains. So I'm sure there's plenty of story left. So what we're going to do is we're gonna, whatever it takes, next time is going to be the final finale. We're going to get through the rest of chapter 5. If it takes 4 hours, it takes 4 hours. Finish out the summer, because we've been doing this one all summer for sure. Anyways, thank you guys very much for watching tonight. We'll see you again on August 31st to end off the Hayseed night. Thank you guys very much, and we'll see you guys next week.